Welcome, everyone, to What the Force. I'm Marie-Claire Gould, your host, and with me for all of these Andor Declassified episodes is my good friend and yours, Missy.
Hello, all.
Today, we are covering all of episodes 7, 8, and 9, Messenger. Who are you, and welcome to the rebellion. I have a few comments. I will keep it brief.
Go.
There was a great comment that I read actually on Blue Sky, which is that this is the entire frame. This frame and this lens is entirely told through the eyes of Mon telling the story of the lead up to the rebellion to her grandchildren.
Interesting.
And that this is like a theory that is going around, or a thought.
Mm-hmm.
And this is from Eris, or Earis, and on Blue Sky. I was like,
her. No, I know her in person. Like I know her.
Like I love it. It's great. And it's specifically because of like the sort of like words that are being said. Like this is the story that is being told, you know, to the next generation.
Yeah, which is the way we like stories to be told, you know.
Yeah.
Like folklore.
Exactly. And then I have one other comment, which is that the shapes in episode 8 seem to be very labyrinthine, especially in the attack and in the lead up. The shapes of the city, where Cyril confronts Deirdre and then ventures into the gore demonstration, very maze-like. And that was from Kyle Larson. What do you think?
Well, I do agree. And it was interesting because I did notice the symbol on the flags in the crowd. And I was like, yeah, that is actually a labyrinth. So it's interesting because yes, you could say it appears in the city and everything, but it doesn't actually appear predominantly throughout, most of the show. And so it was surprising to me because
they focused on the flag specifically to show the sort of like hexagon shape, and then the entrances and how it kind of looks like a maze, which is cool.
And I do think it's probably intended to a little bit kind of recall a web. Since the spiders are the whole thing there. But yeah, I liked that. I feel like they probably could have been a little more heavy-handed with that theme if they wanted to.
Yeah, if it was going to be that explicit. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Do you want to dig into some themes and motifs? And
let's do it. You've got more than I do this time, but yes, we can do it.
I'm sorry.
You do. No, that's good.
Yeah, so we have a big call to fate, and anytime that you explicitly call out the Force the way that you have, it means that you're going to also be dealing with fate in some ways, because once you're kind of like in the Force, things can happen simultaneously. And so how this is actually playing out in Andor as a series is there's these moments that reflect forward into the future, into Rogue One. So certain things that are said are repeated again in Rogue One. And then there's this feeling that Cassian himself is exactly who needs to be involved at the time he needs to be there. He's the one. He has a chosen one aura around him. And so this is Messiah-like, or like a savior from a religious or from a mythological perspective. And there's a bunch of symbolism around that could be associated with like especially biblical characters like Moses or like Jesus. And so it is interesting to see that applied to a non-Force character who seems to be at the center of everything that is happening.
Yeah, it was, we'll get to this, but the acknowledgement of the Force really was one of my favorite things about this arc. Was like, oh my gosh, yes, they brought in the mystical stuff, and it was only there a little bit, but it was enough, and I really liked it. It made me so happy.
It was really good, and it increased my interest in the show exponentially, of course, because I do like the weirdy Forcey stuff.
We love it.
The next one that I have to remember that like maybe not everybody has studied history as much as me, but the theme and the absolute domination of the totalitarian playbook, very Orwellian as well, from like, of course, 1984, in how the destruction of Gore happened and the domination of Gore. And then also like the aftershocks to do with what happened on Coruscant and the rest of the galaxy. I forget sometimes that maybe not everybody has studied fascism or the lead up to World War I and II or other totalitarian regimes, or authoritarianism. And so to see it live in Star Wars is actually quite good because it gives people a context of, oh, that's bad.
Yeah.
You know?
Or
beyond
it just
seeing it
recognize.
on the news.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And if you have not actually read 1984, I have to say it really stands up to the hype. You know, if you've always heard this mentioned as a modern classic and you've never picked it up, it's not a very long book. It's a relatively quick read, and it is excellent. So I do really recommend it. And you'll see these things. You know, one of the biggest things in it is, I think it's called the Ministry of Truth, but they're always kind of destroying records of what happened and rewriting history. So history is what they make it, and that's very much, you know, at play here in these episodes of Andor.
Exactly. Yeah. And you know, sort of the listening devices, the control of the narrative, especially the physical domination and fear that is provoked in people that are part of the galaxy. That's all part of the Orwellian lens to totalitarianism and authoritarianism.
Yep.
So I do recommend that book as well. The next one, of course, is consumption.
Woo, consumption. I feel like we need our own little like jingle for consumption when it comes up.
Consumption. What's your emotion? I don't know. I'm not a good singer. But it's consumption as part of domination. And so this comes from when you have a dominator culture, imperialism, capitalism, white supremacy, and patriarchy. So if you have a dominator culture, you are going to have consumption as part of that because domination can only consume, it cannot create. We have the symbols of consumption in mining. Mining we have talked about since the beginning of this series, and since before this series we knew it was going to be a thing. It is everywhere in Star Wars, so I highly recommend that you listen to my mining equals the dark side episode. It's a really good one to dig into the symbolism and where we see mining in Star Wars. We also have genocide in general, which is of course the way of just completely using up a population so that you can get at whatever land or whatever resources or whatever they have that you want. And the last one is, of course, fire.
Yep.
Which is used heavily in especially the middle episode, reflected on people.
Yes. And but then it's also referenced in the text of the final episode as well.
Yes. Yeah. It is there. And so fire consumes, fire eats, etc. There's also a theme that has been, and a motif that has been there, and it is tied to the totalitarian playbook, right? So if it can happen here, it can happen anywhere, or the idea that like history will repeat itself. And we have it by directly paralleling Ferrix and Gore.
Yep.
Stone and Sky, Valley and Highland, Ferrix, we are the Gore. And they walk in a march procession and they sing.
Yep. Just like they did on Ferrix.
Parallel
on Rex Road.
Almost exactly. And then we have that called out explicitly in the text because, hey, maybe Star Wars fans have been missing the message and the thread this whole time. This is anti-authoritarianism in fiction.
Yeah.
By the way, guys, this is bad.
Yeah. Well, but just the overall idea of it's not just happening to them. It's not just happening to those people.
No.
And maybe that sucks, but you know what? We over here are safe. It's not that. It's all of us are at risk
Hmm.
if any of us are at risk. And so that is, to your point, called out explicitly in the text. And there's one other thing, and I'll mention it when we get in there, but they also have a hint of foreshadowing for Alderaan in here too.
Oh, I caught that as well.
Yep. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah,
So
it
it's
was
in there.
really smart. It was a
Yep,
really
it
subtle,
was.
smart thing.
Yeah.
Monsters,
Yep.
right? So this is really interesting, especially from a mythic motif perspective. Monsters are the thing that are created from the darkness. So what creates
Hmm.
the darkness? Well, the darkness is created because of greed, because of
Hmm.
domination, because of consumption, all of these things. And
Hmm.
we have a direct line from both the like whole plan to gore with Deirdre
Hmm.
and the monster line there, and we'll get to that later on in the text, to Palpatine. So these are directly correlated, these things.
Yeah. Yeah.
The
Definitely.
monster
So.
will come for you because you've
Mhm.
done nothing to fight it, you've only fed it.
Yep. 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 Hmm.
Really, really important. And the monster is, of course, the darkness.
Hmm.
We also have more binaries. I mean,
Lots and lots and lots of binaries.
Valley and Highland,
Yep.
staying in versus getting out, you know, will you stay or will you go? There's lots of that
Yeah,
feeling
and
in this.
frequently illustrated by many of the ways that we've seen binaries done before. There is some contrast, some black and white. We
Mhm.
see the yin yang come back in. You've got and I know that this you're getting to this, but the threshold, the doorway. So to your point about staying in, getting out, like there's a lot of doorways and they mean a lot. Every time someone goes in or out of a doorway, it has a lot of meaning about where their frame of mind is. Who are they loyal to when they're in versus out? So it's very interesting that way.
The rebellion itself is on a heroic journey, a hero's journey of sorts.
Yeah,
And it
the
is
rebellion is a character.
the rebellion itself is its own character in this. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to call that out throughout talking through the episodes. But there are characters within it that are on their own heroic journeys. And then there are characters that are functioning as archetypes within the rebellion itself, which is growing and changing and about to go through its own threshold. And the threshold that it is about to go through is the one that is in Rogue One. The gate on
Mm-hmm.
Scarif represents
Yes.
the moment by which the rebellion turns into war, directly into there is no more Senate. There is the actions. And actually, Pablo Hidalgo was actually tweeting about or posting on Blue Sky about how Scarif is the reason that the Senate is disbanded.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
so you exit the normal world and you enter into this darker period of time, this unknown world where there is no empire. There's empire and rebels.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It's really cool.
That's really cool.
I briefly want to talk about a few archetypes, and we'll have way more to say with Bix later on. But she does actually move from what I would consider to be a lover flat arc
Mm-hmm.
into a heroic stage question mark.
Yeah.
So the hero often needs a push out the door. And we talked about this last episode, how she really needed to go off on her own and away from Luthen especially, but also Cassian to grow and to change. And actually, in a way, both her and Cassian were keeping each other back from changing and growing and doing what they needed to do. I have some problems with how it happened. You have some problems with how it happened?
Yeah.
We'll wait until
I don't love it. Yeah, we'll get into that. But I will say we called it. We said they were gonna need to separate, like by choice, in order to grow, and they did.
Yeah, and
so
I mean, she made the choice, but it was for him, and we'll get into it. It's a little messy.
Yeah. We'll talk about it.
Cassian. I have a quote, and actually, maybe it's easier to just pull it up on my phone because I had it on my phone. is all about queens.
Okay.
Her fear of becoming, or Cassian's fear of becoming a ruler, isn't because she lacks the necessary qualities, power, will, intelligence. Her fear is that she is giving up on her queen identity and that she can no longer be identified with her children and they with her. No longer can she throw herself in front of her wayward child and tell the Punisher, take me instead. Now she must view her child as a subject and become more instead of their shield, an impartial arbiter. So the idea is you have to let the kids go.
Yeah.
And in truth.
And in this case, Bix.
Bix, yeah.
Yeah.
And it's not necessarily like the Queen arc is all about building family and building home and becoming very insular focused. You have to start moving beyond that and transform into the king or a leader because the kingdom is in threat.
Right.
There is a catalyst that is driving the king to step into the leadership role.
And I don't think that he will complete his journey to king until Luthen is out of the picture.
Yes, it's actually the king usually has to die or the kingdom, the throne is empty. It's actually a part of the conversation that the king is empty. The throne is empty, and so you have to step into the role that the king...
You have to.
Yeah, you have to. So, but we'll get into Luthen in a second. But I do think that, like, there's a really interesting thing that's happening with his wound and a few other things. But he was stagnating in his little queen phase because he's been in it for a couple of years.
Yep.
Protecting Bix. Let's talk about Luthen briefly. He is, in my opinion, a sick and dying king.
Agreed.
And so he's on his way out. A king, it represents sort of the health of the kingdom. And it's kind of in this phase of needing to be reborn into its newer version. And I believe that it will happen in the next arc that Luthen will die.
I agree. I think he'll get caught and he'll die.
Yeah.
So I think that's definitely happening in the final arc of the season.
I do think that Mon went through a transformation. I'm just not 100% sure what it was.
I agree. I think we'll get to this, but I think there were probably some key scenes missing that would have helped us understand that better.
Yeah. So she made a choice to leave sort of her insular world. So it could be that she's moving from being a queen to being a king.
Right.
Or from a king to being a crone. Right. She is left.
I don't know if I see that as much.
She could, right? Because it's sort of a death. It's a symbolic death.
It is a sort of death, but I still think she probably leans a lot harder in Queen to King because of the whole point of like
she's now leading to lead the rebellion instead of her home and things.
And not even just that, but like the broader rebellion. Like she was really only involved with a small part of the rebellion, and she was still very focused on representing Chandrila, and she was obviously very, involved with her family and her daughter. So everything was very much about like her world, her circle of influence, the people that mattered to her. And she really did have to make the choice when she gets to, the decision to leave and to go to Yavin and basically take command effectively, that she's now going to be representing the galaxy as a whole. And so that is a big step. So I would say it's a queen to king. We're going to go with king. We're going to go king.
We talked about it. It's good.
We did it. All right. Okay.
Do you have any thoughts on Deirdre?
Oh, Dedra. So I do think she's been a vixen this whole time. And I think...
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, and I think that what's interesting is I don't know if she's left that, but what I do think has happened is I think she has realized she's a vixen. I think she thought she was being independent this whole time, that she was making decisions on her own and that she was the master of her own destiny. And I think she got this horrible, horrible realization that she is just a puppet. And I think, that... So I don't know what kind of realization that will, or what, I don't know what that realization will do to her. I don't know if she's going to double down, which I think is certainly possible for her. I don't know if she's going to try to break away from the mentors, from Partagaz, whatever. I don't know. We'll see. But I think she, at least on some level, knows that she's a vixen.
And so if this realization comes and she breaks away from her mentors, but still stays in a negative arc. We could see her becoming a bully archetype or a coward.
Yes, absolutely.
Which are the shadow forms of the hero.
Right. Yeah, totally. So it'll be interesting to see what happens, because I think they gave her so much more complexity than many people expected, and I really like that, actually.
Yeah, it was a hard episode to watch. And
she's a horrible person, but you still empathize with her on some level in these episodes. It's like, it's really interesting.
It's really interesting. And you could see her coming to the realization that she's never been in the driver's seat.
Yes.
And that's also kind of an interesting thing that's been called out. I make my own decisions. I want to make my own decisions. That's being called out several times.
Yeah, it's very much, and you get that a lot. And Dedra even at one point, says, "Oh, I was following orders." So she tries to fall back on that, and it's obviously not enough. It doesn't. She's not satisfied with it, even though she says it. And one other thing I want to mention, because this is reminding me, in Star Wars, to get back up to your monster theme, in Star Wars, monster and machine are often used interchangeably. The machine is the monster, and the machine, what they mean is the imperial machine, the consumption machine, the machine that destroys and eats. And so that's why the mining is such a significant motif for that, is because it literally is machines eating up resources. And so kind of the way that plays into Dedra and Cyril's story is both of them coming to realize in their own way that they have been cogs in this machine.
Exactly.
And so it's fascinating.
Let's dig into episode 7, Messenger. Messenger is such a perfect description for what Cassian is in that heroic journey that the rebellion itself is under. And a messenger is archetypically and can be a herald in a heroic journey. This is from The Hero with 1,000 Faces. The herald or announcer of the adventure, therefore, is often the dark, loathly, or terrifying, sometimes judged by the world. Yet, if one could follow, the way would be opened through the walls into the dark where the jewels glow. Okay, Cassian is not we like him. He does bad things.
Yeah.
And so he is also the herald of the rebellion. Sometimes he also is the shepherd, so the person that is guiding. And sometimes he is the person that is following, but right behind you.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so he is the person that is currently getting you to that gateway that I talked about at Scarif, which triggers the rest of the rebellion and what we consider to be the Galactic Civil War.
Yeah. Yeah. And he's always, so in Rogue One, he's carrying Jyn along on her destiny. And that's very important. So it's like his destiny is to be the messenger, not just for the plans, but for Jyn herself, who also has a heroic role to play. And
in these episodes, you actually see him do that. And it calls back to the start of the season when he did that.
Yep.
So I'll call that out in a little bit. But it's it's a cool title.
It is a cool title. Can I mention one other interesting messenger? So,
sure.
I think most people probably, when they think of mythology and messengers, they probably immediately go to Hermes. And there's plenty of that happening here, for sure. But one that kind of occurred to me while I was, mulling this over was if you recall the story of Marathon.
Yeah.
And the runner.
The batons.
Yes. That I think he's called Phidippides. I'm probably saying that wrong. but the one who ran the original marathon.
Oh, yes, ran the whole length and then
and the whole thing,
delivered the message.
Comes back, delivers this message, and then dies. And that's basically Cassian's journey.
Yeah, no, that's perfect.
He delivers, what he is destined to deliver, and then he dies. Because that was his role. So I thought that was so interesting, that parallel.
Perfect. So we come across to Yavin, and it's this beautiful shot of these ships flying into the military base, which is the ruins. And it's so starkly different from what we saw 2 years ago, 2 years ago?
1 year, I think. Or no, 2 years from the first. You mean the first time we were on Yavin in this? Yeah, okay. Yes. So I hate to start to kick off this discussion on kind of a negative note, but I felt this wave of disappointment because I was like, oh man, we missed all of them coming back to Yavin and setting it up and blah, 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 blah. Again,
it's like we've missed all the cool character and defining stuff in the
all the
jump
stuff
scenes.
I wanted to see. I don't understand what was the point of that whole early Yavin arc if we weren't going to be have a moment where they were like, oh no, we need a new base. What do we do? And Cassian's like, I've got a place.
It's why he was able to build a home there, but we have to do all of this extrapolation.
Right.
We have to do all of this guesswork unless they decide to write a book, and that's disappointing.
Right. And a lot of people are saying, oh, well, they didn't have time and da-da-da, and, it's all implied. I know, but this is visual media, and you got to put that stuff on screen so that we can recognize things later, and it gives emotional impact to the events that happen. And my issue, and this was the moment, and the reason I'm bringing this up now is because this was the moment I realized it. When I saw that and I realized the jump in time and the fact that we didn't get to see any of that stuff, that was where I finally realized, oh man, the time jumps really hurt this season. And I'm just going to say that. I think the time jumps really hurt this season. So much stuff that could have packed an additional emotional punch if we had seen it is not there.
Yep.
And it's, for me as the audience, as member of the audience, I'm frustrated by it because all that stuff, juicy, delicious stuff that I want happening with the characters, it's missing.
Yeah, it misses the emotional struggle.
Yeah.
That ties to the meaning of why.
Yeah. Yeah.
We see the big climaxes without necessarily any of the effort that went into the climax.
Yeah.
So it takes away from the climaxes to me.
I agree. And listen, if you found this arc in particular very, very emotional, I totally get that. I didn't get as emotional as I maybe expected to or wish I had. And it was just because there was just so much missing. And so anyway, so I'll leave it at that. But it is beautiful. The shots are beautiful. As always, it's exciting to see Yavin. It's exciting to see the ships. I was watching with my husband, and he's a big nerd for the ships. So he was like, I'm sorry, I have to pause. I have to go back and see what ships they have there. he had to see which ships were there. So, that's always fun. I love that. That's some of the fun of Star Wars. So I did enjoy that.
We see Will arrive purposefully walking towards where Cassian is. Cassian is nursing a sore shoulder and a wound that will not heal.
Yeah.
That is on his shoulder. So to me, this indicates he is emotionally wounded. It's often associated with the Fisher King, which means he represents something in the rebellion itself, in the overall rebellion, and it can't become officially what it needs to be without him. And he is wounded. And so everybody keeps on calling him back. So we get Will, we get Draven, we get Bix, we get all of these people that are like, hey, my guy, we need you in this fight. And actually, it almost seems like everybody is waiting for him to actually become something.
Yeah. And the wounded shoulder also plays into what you were saying earlier about him being also a chosen one character, like Luke and Anakin, who lose their arm or hand or whatever. It was very Like he didn't lose an arm, but he didn't have the use of one really while his wound would not heal. So that
and again,
was
we didn't get to see that, and so we don't know the impact of it, and so it could be we know what these things mean, but it could get lost by somebody who's just watching. Like, why? He had a hurt shoulder.
Yeah, it's an injury. So what? Like, well, like you don't get to see him being like for example, if we had seen him like when he's stretching his arm, it just looks like, oh, he slept on it wrong or something, right? But if you had gotten to see him in like a sling, then it would be like, oh man, he's really injured. There's something wrong with his arm, and then the visual motif would be so much stronger, and the associations, and we'd understand what that means. Hey, injured arm in Star Wars, that has a history.
That has a history, yeah. And it means that there's already been a sacrifice that is made that is sort of indicated a death.
Yes, it's a death.
It's a death, but there's no impact in that, unfortunately.
Yeah.
So, but we know what that means.
Yeah, it's unaddressed trauma. It's also the fact that the wound won't heal. It's indecisiveness. So he's, he can't really decide to go all in on the rebellion.
Yep.
He's holding back. And so that's why the wound won't heal, is because he's sort of sitting on the fence.
Exactly. So Bix says, hey, let me add some salve to that. And he takes off his shirt, and they have this very cutesy moment. Yeah. Flirtatious, and they kiss, and they're all lovey-dovey. And of course, this doubles down on the fact that he wants to stay in this queen phase where he is in a home. They've built a home together. He's refusing the call to take up that leadership position.
Yep. Yeah.
It's valid in some ways, and he kind of just wants to stay with his lover, which he actually calls her. And they are in this very lap of the goddess moment together, and you don't want to transform. You don't want to move into that leadership role.
Yeah, if you listen to our Willow episodes, there's a Lap of the Goddess episode that we discuss in a lot of detail. And one of the things that we note is the only way anybody gets out of there is they have to be quite literally kidnapped. So nobody wants to leave the Lap of the Goddess. They have to be yanked out. So that is what happens.
And that will tie to what Bix represents to him later on. So pay attention to that.
Right, definitely. But also we want to call out here the round door in their home is really critical. As we already said, there have been obviously lots of circles throughout the rest of the season, so we know it's a big thing. In particular, right, boxes, exactly. So in particular, the round door calls not only his destiny with relation to the Death Star, but also, again, that gate on Scarif. And, are you in, are you out? And so there's, whether or not they are inside or outside or standing in the doorway is about this decision, that threshold of am I in or am I out? And so when he's in their home, he's choosing Bix, he's choosing their home, he's choosing his queen state, and when he ventures out, he's choosing the rebellion and moving closer to becoming a king.
Yeah. So Will interrupts and asks, this is one of many times he is asked to step up. Luthen wants to know if you're ready for work. Can he count on you? And so this is very much the idea of, Queen Cassian. So this idea of I'm in this insular state versus King Luthen saying I need you to step up and lead and be there and be somebody we can count on. And Cassian says, we need an army. Everything is a risk. And so he's he's just very scared of disrupting the peace that he has gotten you don't want to leave the lap of the goddess. The lap of the goddess, though, is not a growth state. It is a flat state.
It's only for resting. So, which is why you can't stay there, is because you rest, but then you have to continue on the journey. And so he can't stay. So the other thing I want to mention is there's a little bit of a philosophical argument coming into play here. And so you start to see sort of the factions in the rebellion, which up to this point, I would say have not been very apparent. But
except for maybe Saw and how he's mentioned he doesn't trust any of the other groups.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. But here what we're seeing, and this becomes more apparent later, is Luthen's spy network versus Baal's army.
Yeah.
Baal is the one who has been building the army. A lot of what's happening at Yavin is him. And we know that from Rebels, if you've watched Rebels, and some of the other stories. And so we know that this is all happening in the background. When Will comes in, you hear all this stuff about how you got to check in with your health officer and blah, 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 and all this other stuff. They're trying to get organized. We talked last time about like how, that little scrappy militia is not going to cut it anymore. You got to get organized. You got to get trained. So you got to follow orders, all of that kind of stuff. And so that is what they're doing here. But Will, because he's still working for Luthen, is still part of like the spy network. And so he's, Cassian's saying, hey, we're building an army here. And Will's like, no, you got to come do what we're doing.
And he didn't even check in before he came to go see Cassian.
Which it makes perfect sense for somebody that has, as far as we know, been at the side of Saw Gerrera for a while. So, he's
also
he's
like directly reporting to Luthen, much like Cassian was.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
We have we move on to Gore and seeing the bombing that happens at the naval terminal. And there's all these reporters around sort of reporting on the disaster and what has happened and the escalation. And didn't it feel like, you're the same age as me roughly, didn't it feel like growing up in the 90s and seeing like any terrorist attack or any sort of bombing on a city?
Yeah.
In the news.
Absolutely. That's exactly how it felt. Like it's
a very Western media.
It was. It's because you have to understand that stuff is, the purpose of it is not to inform. It is to titillate. It is to titillate. You're supposed to see these terrible things happening to people far away who are not you and be like, oh my gosh, how shocking, how horrible. And you're not supposed to really truly empathize with them or wonder if you're getting the full story or anything like that. So it's all very, shock and propaganda as entertainment. And that's how it's being presented. Yeah. So
yep, absolutely.
But okay, so this is also, we see this kind of through Cyril's eyes as he appears in, and we see the change in him. He used to be dressed in imperial black and white. Now he's dressed in this rich brown Gorman twill. His hair's longer and it's a little curly. It's got kind of a stylish natural wave to it. He has become kind of a local boy.
He certainly cares about the city.
Yeah.
Because I forget it later on when he's actually in his apartment. He actually is playing with his spiders.
Yes, I love that part.
Oh, man.
I know. So he does. He we've talked about this. He's a true believer. He believes in what he's doing. He thinks it's good. He thinks it's right. But he also has had no reason not to completely invest in his new home.
Yep.
He likes it there. He likes the members of the Gorman Front that he's met. He enjoys adopting aspects of the culture.
Doesn't agree with attacking people who haven't done anything wrong.
Yeah. His whole thing is he's like, oh, well, we're here for the outside agitators, who in his mind are the criminals that need to be brought to justice. And he's not really concerned with anything else.
Yeah. He's like, these are good people here.
Yeah. Yeah.
So the math isn't mathing for him.
Right. But this is the first time in this arc that we get the hint of that. Is again, we get that visual transformation of him. Clearly his style has assimilated quite a bit. And then we also see him kind of looking uncomfortably around at the barricades and all of the, like, he's uncomfortable looking at all this. He's you could feel his discomfort. So, it's really important. We jump back to Will, Bix, and Cass. They're sitting around, of course, a round table, because of course they are, in front of a round window, because of course they are. And Cass and Will are on opposing sides of the table, and Bix sits in the middle.
Mm-hmm.
She is the barrier.
Yep. Yep. And
so
the three of them have like the longest history together too.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And Will says she's there talking about Deirdre Miro. She's just waiting to be killed.
Yeah. Yep. She's a monster. Calls her a monster.
She's a monster.
Mm-hmm.
We won't have a better chance. So this is the first time that we hear the words monster, and it ties Deirdre's actions, what happened on Ferrix, all the way to Mon's speech.
And this is another place where I will jump in with one of our first critiques, I would say, about Bix, which is they pass it to her. Oh, you know her. And then suddenly we don't talk about that anymore. And I'm like, between everyone present there, who has the most reason to kill Dedra? It's fucking Bix. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
It makes me mad. But like, it's Bix.
It is.
There's no reference to it.
Tortured.
Right. And there's no reference to her wanting anything to do with this, or that she might come on the mission. Remember, at the end of the previous episode, she was like, I'm coming on the mission no matter what it is. And then, of course, she ended up taking point on the mission with Dr. Gorst. And then
she's completely healed and fine.
But now suddenly she doesn't want anything to do with the missions, including one that's very personal to her. She doesn't say anything about I want to come or anything.
She's just, we referred to this last episode. She's in the pre-heroine's journey. She's stuck waiting.
Yeah, but it's specifically
not great writing, actually.
No,
this part, Bix, their struggles.
I'm really not into Bix, the dutiful soldier's wife. Like, I don't know what that is about, because I think we could have Bix the revolutionary, and I don't think it would be that hard to make it work. And somehow that was not what we got.
And this is purely speculative. It was like they couldn't figure out what to do with her.
Which is bizarre, because I could think of
I mean specifically to do with Cassian's end. And we had commented earlier on, we thought, hey, she's probably going to die. Right? If they probably saw it too, and were like, let's just make her his goddess in his mind, the thing that is his Petrarchan ideal, his beautiful thing on a tower he can never truly be with, the thing that he thinks about when the light of the Death Star touches Scarif.
But that's also why she had to remain kind of like pure and unsullied. And I think that's the other reason. It's very like, go back and listen to our American monomyth episode. It's very that where the perfect woman, the American monomyth bride, if you will, is always this perfect, unsullied, pure woman. And so I think it was, she couldn't, she had already had her
be a
moment
killer
of revenge. Right. They couldn't have her go and like be an assassin with him. That would not be okay. Like,
or even a revolutionary. Like, she's doing nothing.
Yeah, she's just there. She's making tea. She makes tea multiple times in these episodes.
She is only comfort for Cassian.
Yeah.
And then she only serves as a furthering of Cassian's journey, not through her death, but through her absence.
Right, but she is not permitted to have any darkness. And the introduction of Dedra here should have brought up Bix's darkness, and the fact that it does not is really
weird.
Telling and weird about what they're doing. So moving on, speaking of Dedra.
We have her talking to Major Partagaz, and this starts her, she's hesitant. She doesn't think that it's time. She has concerns and is quite agitated, and he calls her out on this throughout the course of many of their conversations.
Yes.
But he goes into in-depth about how they have no choice to do this. But this is Dedra's chance to say no, in a way, right? She could say, hey, we're not ready. She could have tried to come up with more excuses and reasons, but he was having none of it. He's like, we tried the synthetic. We tried to find other sources. It's bad luck, Gorman.
Bad luck, Gorman. Yeah.
Yeah.
He is another character that we love to hate. Like, he
is
so
delicious
awful.
in his terribleness.
He is. He's terrible, but I kind of love him for being so awful. Like, just there are complex characters, and then there are ones that are just unabashedly horrible. He definitely falls into the latter group, and I love it.
He is a bureaucrat.
Yes.
In
Yes.
like, there are people in the working world who can literally zero in and only do what they are asked to do without any sense of humanity.
Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and he's like, it's so funny the way it's all just business to him. And he even tells Dedra, he's like, listen, this is just going to solidify the ISV's place at the Emperor's side. You've done a great job.
You'll be rewarded. It'll be great. Everybody knows.
Yeah, so like he's telling her all this, and she just looks so uncomfortable. And I got to be honest, when I first watched it, I was actually really surprised that they showed that level of discomfort with her. But I think it makes sense as it goes on, because your whole thing is that Dedra thrives on being in control. I am in control of everything. For instance, we saw her last season wrest control away from other supervisors and like take charge of their cases, even though it wasn't her. So we know
also to get like the Axis case so that she could get her nose into everything.
Exactly. So she's like, she's always been in control, and what has happened on this project is that she has been less and less in control over time, and it makes her really uncomfortable.
I love the line that he says, let the image of professional ascendance settle your nerves.
Oh my gosh.
What? That is so good.
It's a good line, yeah.
And essentially that's saying, hey, you did the good dirty work, now you get the prize and the victory. And this is another version of mining as a theme, i.e., this is a quick and easy path to getting everything you've ever wanted. Hey, what is it to, steal money? You get all the money you want, right? It's the same thing. The quick and easy path is the dark side.
Yeah.
And in so many ways, this represents, from her own feminine perspective, the false boon of success.
Yeah.
This is succeeding in a dominator culture, in a patriarchy, in an imperial perspective, that this is what success looks like: keeping your mouth shut and doing what you're told and doing the awful thing.
Yeah, exactly. And what's fascinating is, if you look, there's lights behind her head, and they almost looks like horns or maybe even antennae, but like it looks very ominous. They've got, because of the monitor, they've got her face lit from below. So the whole scene is shot to look very creepy and unsettling.
What I find super interesting, and it was probably just a choice of ease / money, is in Star Wars: New Hope and in every other movie, even in Rebels, we see hollows projected. And in this, we only see people communicate through screens.
Yeah, then you're right. That is really interesting, because everything's always hollows and everything else. So yeah, fascinating.
I'm not sure why, other than money, that they would make that choice.
There's a handful of things I noticed that are less Star Warsy. So examples is the so we already said, the lack of hollows, but also I hear them say gun. And the thing is, in in Star Wars, they almost always say blaster. They rarely say gun. And so I find that very
that's a weird thing.
They're little things, and none of those are a big deal, but they're interesting, because I always say this, if you really, really want something to be airtight in terms of its accuracy and continuity, you go to the fanfic authors, because let me tell you, they dive deep on Wikipedia and they know everything. So we just have a very high standard for the accuracy of our Star Wars trivia, but it's fine. It's not a big deal. But yeah, good call out that they don't really use the hollows.
I haven't seen one hollow projection.
Even though they call it the HoloNet, they're not hollows, which is
all
bizarre.
On screens.
Yeah, weird. No.
So then we have the Cyril and Dedra confrontation. in the
so good.
hallway, and it's so tight.
All their interactions are amazing.
Tense.
Just really good.
And so he confronts her fully because of what is happening. And my sources say this is all nonsense.
Yeah.
His people, like the people he's been getting to know in the Gorman front.
Yeah.
And she tells him straight up to go home, pack, and be ready to leave and do what I told you to do.
Yeah. And he's so freaked out and uncomfortable. And he's confused. Like, he has this general aura of like, cognitive dissonance. I don't get it. None of this makes sense. It doesn't align with what I thought was true. And so they do such a good job in this. And Kyle Soller does such an amazing job of really showing someone where their preconceived ideas are smashing up against reality. And they're just sort of, he's shell-shocked by it. He's, I don't understand what's happening. And on some level, of course, he knows the dawning realization is there. But he's in denial because he just doesn't understand. So the whole rest of his story is him trying to reconcile this, right? How can this be? But I thought that we were here for this reason. What do you mean that's not what we're doing? What are you talking about? So then she says, we'll be rewarded. And he goes, for what? What have we accomplished?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because she's never been clear with him there's been a lie within a lie within a lie for him and what he's been doing for her.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. Well,
then we get the forced kiss. And Cyril is like, question mark, question mark, question mark.
Yeah, he looks so uncomfortable. And even her approach to it, there's a desperation in it.
Yeah.
There's like, I need him not to think too much. I need him just to do it. Just do what I say. Right?
Yeah. And she also tells him, like, we'll be together. So it's like, look past all this garbage that we've just done.
Yeah.
And what you're about to see. Just remember, we'll be together. Aren't I worth it? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's all very uncomfortable, but so good.
We briefly check in with Mon in the Senate.
Where you can see that security has increased quite a lot.
Quite a bit. And Cloris, her driver, is being even more demanding of her schedule. And they sort of make a joke, Erskine and her, about don't request a new driver because they might send somebody smart.
Yeah, definitely.
The Gorman senator approaches Mon and sort of has kind of seen what she's been trying to do this whole time for him and thanks her. And I love this line. They don't even bother to lie badly anymore. I suppose that's the final humiliation. Yeah.
And that one, I will say, hit hard in terms of, because that's a lot of what I feel like, we see worldwide, but certainly in the US right now, we see a lot of just, it'll be something you can see with your own two eyes. And then the powers that be will say, no, that's not what it is, and tell you it's something different. And you're just supposed to go with it and be like, okay, yeah, we'll all buy the lie. And it's like, no, that's very clearly BS. Like, this is just, and you didn't even try to make it plausible, So so when he says that, it's like, ouch. But yeah.
Yeah. And I think there's a lot of like realization of how hard it is to push back when a powerful person tells a lie if everyone is sort of in silent agreement to just sort of accept it because of fear or because of there is so much groupthink happening everywhere in the empire.
Yeah, you have to be able to call a lie. And that, of course, ends up being a big part of Mon's journey in the course of this, is the ability to say that.
Exactly. So we go back to the Gorman front, and they're talking and discussing about arguing about whether violence is the time and how the main leader, the councilman, is
Rylance.
Yeah, trying to push for non-violence to this time. And so it's really important to keep that in mind when he eventually does do violence.
Right. He does an act of violence, but he's trying to keep them non-violent.
And we have that guy who caused
Lezine.
Yeah, Cinta's death, or was part of Cinta's death previously. And he's like, we are Gore. They are taking, if they take that from us, what else is worth saving, you know? And
but Lezine, I like the character of Lezine because he's not just like, he's not really necessarily, he's a hothead, but he's not really just a champion for violence. And you see that later when he starts the singing, because he does that in response to seeing everyone around him preparing to fight. And he wants to prevent the violence for as long as he can, and which is why he starts the singing.
Yes.
So he's very into like, I'm less about whether it's violent or not violent and more just about, are we maintaining our identity as Gore?
Yes.
And so that's very much, Lezine is sort of like the keeper of sort of the Gorman spirit, if you will.
Yeah, he's like the working man.
Yeah.
Because there was kind of like the two different leaders, the working people and the more upper elites.
You're right, room. Exactly.
Yeah. So we go back to Yavin, and I love this scene.
Yes,
there was so much like sound design. Like it was a bustling whole community of people, not just the army. But then we focus in on this force healer who I checked and only is listed as force healer in IMDb. And Cassian is mad. Cassian is skeptical. And a little pissed at Bix for bringing him to the force healer because his shoulder is hurt. And she's like, if I was in pain, I would do anything to heal. And so I talked a little bit about how Bix is in this flat archetype called lover, which is often associated around hero. And the lover's purpose is to progress the character that they are in love with on their journey. And so she is trying to get him to be healed so he can be whole and he can do what he needs to do.
Right.
Josie Walker is the person who plays the force healer. She notices him and
she senses him.
She senses him. Yes. It's literally like the force. It's not like they could hear. She was busy, right? Surrounded by people. It's not like she could see him. And she walks up to him and she's like, how do I know you? No, it's not that at all. But it's not that at all. And Bix is like, he has a blaster burn. It's not healing. So she goes and she touches his shoulder with his clothes on, just like Kay, and closes her eyes and she thanks him. And it is a little weird. But she thanks him for clarity, for that feeling of you and like what the journey that he's on. And this completely reminded me of John the Baptist baptizing Jesus. Like, you've been marked, friend. You've been healed. You've been given the stuff. And then suddenly, you know, the angels are like, this is God's son. Like, no, this guy is on a force journey. The force is telling him where he needs to be and when he needs to be there. So he's in the flow of the force, and he will go where he needs to go, and he will pick up what he needs to pick up on his journey as a messenger. She specifically says, gathering as you go, he is a messenger. There is some place he needs to be.
Yeah, I loved it. I really, really loved it. I didn't expect the Force to appear in this story so explicitly, and I'm so pleased that it did. I'm also glad that Force healers are a thing.
Yeah,
it's not really
shocked.
Something. Yeah, it's not really something we've got a lot of elsewhere. So I was really pleased to see that just the whole, I'll be honest, anytime you get a Force user or a Force sensitive who is not
all-powerful Jedi or
a combatant.
Absolutely.
Anytime you get someone who's using the Force for a purpose other than warfare, I get excited. So like, for example, if you've seen Vision season 2, the first episode is the artist.
Right.
And she uses the Force in her art.
Yes.
And it's really beautiful. And I love that. I think that's so cool. And so anytime they do that, I get really pleased. And again, to go back to the Willow example, Alora's magic was in her cooking, right? And Graydon's magic was in his music and that kind of stuff,
and in his like art and his poetry,
right,
and things like that.
So,
yeah,
right. So, point of being magic, and specifically in the case of Star Wars, the Force, having it appear in ways other than martial, is always very cool and much more expansive, and just makes the world of Star Wars so much richer.
Because destruction is the way of the dark side. So fighting is the way of the dark side, but creation is the way of the light side. So creation, healing, life.
Yeah.
Right?
Absolutely.
So seeing something like that, and she's like, even sometimes it even works. So it's not like it's an everyday thing. Right. She's a conduit for the Force, even as a little bit. And that reminds us that we are all interconnected through the Force, and that she has a little bit to give others. What she says, you gather as you go. Collecting is a really interesting motif in myth, and is actually quite common in those that are considered to be the heroes of the story, because they collect allies, they collect important skills, they collect important treasures, objects. They collect pieces of their own soul if they are on a spiritual journey. It ties so well with him as the first one through the gate to Scarif, to the rebellion, the messenger, the herald of the rebellion.
Yep. Yeah.
It's very much also like just a non-religious version. This is kind of like the White Rabbit in The Matrix.
Oh, yeah.
He's now marked. He's awoken. Yeah. He is aware that he is special. And so it happens in myths where somebody calls you what you are. It's like, oh, hey, you're the son of a god. Like, oh, what? Hercules, you're the son of Zeus. Like it happens in myths. It happens in sacred stories. It happens in our stories themselves, or even a popular culture. It is, you are now marked as the important person in the story.
Yeah.
Congratulations. You have main character energy.
Yeah. So he does. Cyril?
Well, no. I actually just want to talk a little bit about how fundamentally the Force is like the collective unconscious of Star Wars. And so how is this possible? Well, from a Jungian sense, we are saying that if the collective unconscious has powers, it is saying, I have identified you, Cassian, to be the messenger of what I want to have happen next. And the Force is acting through him. It is important.
Yeah. It was a great scene to include. I'm so pleased it was there.
So Cyril confronts Enza in the alley.
And do they have a very, very subtle romantic vibe in this
Oh my goodness.
scene?
I thought they cut something. I thought they cut like that he had been flirting with her and had like some sort of
like an emotional affair or something.
Yeah, like he felt more fulfilled by Enza than by Dedra, but we didn't see it, so we don't know.
Yeah.
There was some chemistry.
There definitely was. It's
vibes.
Yeah, it was definitely there. And so, but he's got this increasing desperation because he's coming to the realization slowly of what he's done and what he's part of. And so he turns to her and says, "Oh, just, outside agitators, if we can just pin this on them, everything will be fine." And she gets pissed because basically what he's saying is that your resistance is not valid, because we're just going to blame it on outside agitators. And of course, it is very, like, everyone involved in the resistance, the Gorman Front, is very sincere. And so she slaps him.
Yep. And also this is like a super duper mistake on Cyril's perspective that he doesn't understand, is that he doesn't understand what's going on.
Nope.
And appeasement would never work.
Right. Exactly.
Right? Doing what they say, if they want to destroy you, will never work. You'll just get destroyed faster.
Right.
They would just chance it. Chance being evil.
Which is the realization that her father eventually comes to. Because like you said, he was always being nonviolent in the belief that that would make a difference. And unfortunately, he does actually reach a point where he realizes it doesn't matter. They were going to kill them anyway.
Yep. It's a trap. Cassian's shoulder is better.
Yeah.
Man, that relief. If you've ever had like a bad injury in your shoulder or like a knee or an ankle. Yeah. Good job, Diego. You acted like an old man who had found some relief, taken some good painkillers. So we have this like beautiful moment with Bix, but again, she is playing his goddess because this is the lap of the goddess. And we have the first notes played of the Force theme in the French horn as she starts to talk about the Force. And she says, let it in. It can only be good. Where have we heard that before? Let it in. It's Maz, Canada. There's ties. There's echoes in the Force. Oh my God. I'm so happy.
Yeah. Well, and then she says she's had dreams and she's felt it. And I'm like, Force sensitive Bix? What?
I mean, if she goes off and becomes like a Force nun or something, or goes off and becomes a Force healer, I would be super happy with that.
Yeah,
that would be
cool.
Really cool. I just want it to be something that is worth her character.
I want her to have main character energy. That's what I want for her.
She currently is just idealistic femme energy.
Yeah, exactly. So,
Cassian's packing up to go because he's made the decision to help Luthen and to go to the Gorman area and help out Will. And Draven approaches him and he's like, "What's going on?"
No one said you could go. Where are you going?
What is going on? This isn't just a smuggler's outfit. Yeah. Okay. So they're actually trying to put rules around things. You can't just go where you want to go. If you're on a military base, you can't just leave unless you're given an order to leave or given permission to leave because of a personal reason. He didn't ask for permission. He just was planning on leaving. He filed a flight exit plan.
And this, of course, is interesting because it will eventually come full circle. Like, he will need to learn to follow the rules of a military base. And then eventually he will have to break those rules in order to take Rogue One to Scarif. So
exactly.
It's important. So there is a little bit of a full circle thing going on there. Then we get to Gorman, where new Imperial troops are arriving, and they're very, very green. And this, of course, is completely purposeful. They are meant to be sacrificial lambs. Dedra even says they are like children.
Not a man amongst them.
Yep.
They look like children. Yep.
Yeah.
And so this is another version of consumption because we are eating the children.
Yep. Eating the children. Always a thing in Star Wars.
Yep. They do like to eat them children in Star Wars. If you want to know more about what we're talking about, I would recommend going back to our House of Atreus episode.
Yep. All the stuff.
The U-Wing arrives. Yay, U-Wing!
Yes, and Cassian's got his hotshot pilot moves, which I really enjoyed. It's making Will very uncomfortable. He does not like it.
Yeah, I loved seeing him behind the seat. It was great in the pilot seat.
In general, I was like, we have a moment of characters just being kind of like fun and charming. Because the thing is that everything's so deadly serious all the time, and there's really not a lot to break up that tone. So having Cassian kind of tease Will and mess with him a little bit was really nice.
There wasn't a lot of balance of levity in this, and I struggle with that a little bit. Yeah.
We'll talk about that when we get to Kay as well. So.
Yeah. We have Vel showing up to talk to Bix, and she even talks about how her like goals have changed. She's no more smuggling. She's now part of the rebellion. She's checking in the troops. She's doing her job.
Yeah. I gotta be honest, this scene made me straight up mad. And with the benefit of hindsight, it made me madder.
It does not pass the Bechdel test.
It does not pass the Bechdel test. Thank you. I was gonna say
that's the way that you say it. They have two female characters got together to have a conversation about a guy that isn't there.
Well, and the irony of it is Vel shows up and Bix even says, "Oh, you're looking for Cassian." And Vel goes, "No, I'm here to talk to you." And for a split second, I thought to myself, "Oh, she's got a mission for Bix. This'll be good." Nope. It's not a mission for Bix. She actually did want to talk about Cassian because that's all Bix is good for, is to talk about Cassian.
Yeah.
Ugh.
Very, very, very frustrating.
It was so frustrating.
In fact, 2 men have sent me to talk to you about him.
Yeah, right. Very important to understand.
Draven and Dodonna want you to know that they need him, not you.
Yeah, because again, Vel is too broken to be in a leadership role, so she's just checking out the new recruits.
Bix.
And Bix is
Vel, yeah.
Vel
is
because
too,
but my point is that like Vel's too broken, Bix is too broken. I just like what happened here? We'll get into this, but I want to know what happened here. That like we kind of had some cool femme characters, and then they all got subsumed into the stories of the masculine characters.
Yeah.
I don't know what the heck happened there.
I don't know. It's a struggle, my friend.
Yeah.
It's not like I didn't enjoy this story. I want to clarify. I have enjoyed this arc a lot.
Mm-hmm.
It's just there are critiques from a lens that like there's gaps. There's gaps. There's wounds. There's like holes in the wall. Like I see all of the mess. And
these 3 episodes were the strongest in the season so far. Easily, they're in many ways they're excellent. But yes, there is so much missing. There's so much missing.
Yeah, and maybe it was time. I'm not sure. Maybe it was polish. Maybe it was sanity checking. I'm not sure.
But even so, these are choices.
Yeah.
These are choices.
That were made.
There are choices that made this story not as strong as it could have been. And this is one of them. This is one of the way I think that imagine for a minute if Vel had showed up with a mission for Bix and we got to see Bix and Cassian going on separate parallel missions.
Yep.
Then them growing apart and making the choice to separate at the end of the arc would have made so much sense for both
Would
of
have
them.
made so much sense.
Would have made so much sense. And instead, we get dutiful military wife Bix waiting at home for Cassian.
Yep.
So...
Not that there's a problem with military wives. This is a fictional thing.
The point isn't about the point. I'm talking about it in fiction.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I mean, obviously, like, you know, military spouses go through hell, and I totally respect that. What I'm saying is that when you make that choice in a story, especially a story like Star Wars, where we have a long history of, you know, badass women who do any number of different things. I mean, Leia, I remember as a tiny little kid seeing Leia giving the commands for the evacuation of Hoth and just being like, oh my gosh, she's so cool. She's this tiny little woman and all these people are standing around her listening to her and they're going to do what she says and she's explaining how the ion cannon works and everything they're going to do. And I thought I'd never seen that, a briefing given by a woman. And it was just like. And
then it's like followed up with like Mon in 6. In Return.
Return of the
and
Jedi.
Like she's like, look, spies died for this. We gotta destroy this situation. Like and broken and yet giving the orders and like, oh my goodness. Yeah. It's hard. I really like this arc, but I do have problems with it. And so we'll get to it at the end. But we have Cassian checking into the hotel after him and Will separate. And I gotta point out, Cassian has a little ponytail. Ooh. It's very cute.
Oh my gosh, I didn't see that. That's so fun.
And it's all throughout this arc. And every time I saw it, I was like, oh, ooh, his little ponytail. He's so cute.
Little ponytail.
His little ponytail, so cute.
Like that.
But he runs into the bellhop who's at the former bellhop, who is at the front desk, and he remembers him. And
well, the bellhop does. I don't know if Cassian realizes it until
she's like, she will report you. And then he calls out that he can't bring up his luggage this time. So he's indicates,
trying to indicate.
He's trying to indicate that he is the I'm going to help you out.
I recognize you, and I got you.
He's given him the spy eyes, or the rebel eyes, rebel heart eyes. And then we get this one line, that Alderaanian group, their shuttle's been canceled again.
Yep. Yeah, and that's what we were talking about earlier. That's the foreshadowing there, because we've seen how the whole, if it can happen here, it can happen. If it happened to my people, it can happen to you. And he said, like, later on, the Gore senator actually says, the Gorman senator says, if it can happen to my people, it can happen to you. And he's saying that to Bail.
To Bail Organa. And so that there's 2 times that they call out Alderaan as like, you're next, or you're going to be in trouble.
Exactly. Yeah. Specifically related to Gorman. So that was uncomfortable.
So he goes to his room and he connects with Will, and they talk in the secret code of Weather Center comms. And we're always here if you need us. But he starts to scope out the square, and he realizes how weird everything is. So he notices all of the barricades. He takes a look at and tries to figure out his gun, but he keeps on hearing like the stormtroopers talking, and he tries to figure out where they are, and he like pulls out a little mirror, and he's like, they're above me. They're literally standing on the roof above me. Yeah. So he's just like, what are the stormtroopers doing here? Yeah. Everything is so different.
Because here's the thing. Everyone else we see, all the other personnel, are security. They're basically cops. Yeah. Stormtroopers are soldiers explicitly. So if stormtroopers are there, that's a full-on military presence. Yeah. So he starts to realize that what's happening is much more significant.
Yeah. And that ends... Oh,
no. Yes, that's good. I want to bring up the credits music.
Oh, okay.
Okay. It's operatic, and I think, I'm not 100% sure, I would need to go back and check. It might be the same operatic music that Dedra was listening to in her apartment when she returned from Krennic's meeting. And let me talk about what I think might be happening here. So, remember how I said I thought it seemed almost out of character when Dedra was listening to this music, and when Cyril walked in, she kind of turned it off real fast, like she didn't want him to hear it. Yeah. All of that seemed out of character for her. Why would she be listening to this music? She never struck me as particularly artistic. And why does she not want Cyril to hear it? I think it's Gore music. I think it's Gorman music. And she, on getting this assignment to set Gorman up to be destroyed, I think she came back and listened to this music, almost kind of wistfully, maybe, in a way. And then turned it off.
After the first episode that we saw at Celebration, that she was Gorman.
Yeah, I mean, how would she know, right? She said her parents were criminals. But even if she doesn't have a personal association, just the overall idea of like Gorman is so well known in the galaxy, and in particular, Gorman sort of culture is well known. And so the idea that she would have some sort of small connection to it, and or maybe she was trying to do research and she was like, do I have anything from Gorman? And it was like, oh, I've got this music, I'm going to listen to it, whatever, who knows? But the idea that like that, those only 2 times in this, for what we've seen so far, where that opera style specifically shows up.
I can tell you that at the start of next episode, we hear a choir version of the Gorman anthem.
Yes, and then that's not opera.
No, it's not opera. And then we also hear it at the credits. So that would be really interesting if that was the case, that's the opera music again. Yeah.
So I'd like to look it up, but if anyone wants to check it out, please let me know. I'd love to know if it's the same because it sounded really similar. And I think it would just be so interesting if it was the same music.
That's so cool. Mm-hmm. Let's move on to episode 8. Who are you? Mm-hmm. So Cassian is waking up in the morning and he's prepping for what he's got to do, pulling out, his weapons and figuring it out. And he notices that the imps have suddenly changed what they're doing. Mm-hmm. And they're pulling in all of the barricades and they're defending and they're becoming very defensive. And so he contacts Will and they're opening up the plaza. Well, no, they're not. They're putting a shell around the building. The building is a fortress.
Yep.
Which is very different than anything that they've ever done before.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yep. So Dedra is upset because she's heard that they've landed mining rigs outside and they've basically abandoned all subterfuge and she's losing control of the situation. She's mad. She's like, do you want these rumors flying around? And Partagaz says that they don't care anymore. Mm-hmm. It does not matter. Like, they basically don't care if the Gore realize what's happening.
Because it's too late because they're planning on doing everything that day.
Yeah, they're doing it anyway, so it doesn't matter to them. So, in part, he talks about Gorman aggression being the only story that matters. He's like, oh, our problems with Gorman are well documented at this point. Basically saying we've got all the justification we need. We're doing this. Yeah,
and the reporters themselves are actually sharing the lines that we would expect to see. That hey, we're expecting a general strike, but it's the energy is really bad, and like they're totally they're basically laying all the groundwork to expect a catastrophe.
Right. Exactly. They're talking about how, volatile the situation is and how violent the Gore are. And there were lots of curfew violations. And of course, there's no evidence that is in fact true. It's literally just straight up lies.
Yep.
And the general strike, no one called for a general strike. That's what they're saying. They're saying rumors of a general strike. So again, it's like they are.
But even a general strike is not actually a violent thing.
It's not. But the point is they're inventing things out of whole cloth.
Yes.
And just saying whatever they need to say.
Exactly.
Yeah. So, and they keep saying, how long can the empire remain patient with this? And, they keep talking about testing the empire's patience and stuff. They're laying all that groundwork. Then we get to Cyril, who is gently arranging his spiders.
He's
just like, let me fix up my little spiders here on my shelf. And they call and they say the Imperial employees have to report immediately to the IOC building. So again, he's still getting these clues that oh no, something's about to go down.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. The Gorman front is talking and they're trying. It's the councilman. I forget his name.
Rylands again?
Yeah. He's trying to say it's a trap. They're begging us to fight. They want us to fight. We cannot fight. We have to be peaceful. But everyone is very agitated and they're like, no. And then the chanting starts as people start to come towards the center. We are the Gore. The galaxy is watching.
Yep. Exactly.
And this reminds me so much of the Ferrex walk towards the center of town. Yep. History repeating itself.
Except that the Imperials learned from that.
Yeah, they did. They learned from Ferrex.
Yep.
Cyril is confronted. The mining rigs, they've been landing. I love this line. What kind of being are you? What have you been sent to steal from us? What's in the ground? Just laying it all out there textually. We now understand that there is treasure in Demdare Hills. And so this is a lost mine motif. And so by digging up the ground and stealing it from the ground, and rather than adventuring into the darkness to be healed and to find the treasure yourself, you are taking the shortcut. You are doing the consumptive path and destroying the land.
Yeah. I also want to call out a really subtle thing that happens in the dialogue, which is here, like you said, he says, "What's in our ground?" Our ground, specifically that word. When a similar confrontation happens later with Dedra, she says, "There's something in the dirt here, not ground, dirt." And she says it that way because it makes it sound dirty. And that is the way that oppressors throughout history have justified what they do against oppressed populations is they call them dirty.
Yeah. They dehumanize. They call them
Right.
dirty. They make them
Right.
othered.
Right.
Yeah.
So saying dirt instead of ground is actually significant, even though it's a really subtle thing, because they're both saying the same thing, but they say it different ways based on their perspective.
Yeah. The bellhop confirms to Cassian he's helping him out on the down low. Says, "I never logged you in," as he leaves the building, and he says, "I hope everything goes well for you," or that's what
I hope
Cassian
things work out for you. Cassian says, "I hope things work out."
And he says, "Rebellions are built on hope," which is the line.
It is the line.
It is the line.
I got so excited. I did. I was, I was very much the Leo pointing gif.
This is now another one of those kind of like echoes this message that he carries forward.
Right. Well, this is one of the things that he's gathering, as the Force healer said. So, because what ends up happening is he says rebellions are built on hope to Jin when they're in Jeddah, and then she says it to the Rebel Alliance when they're about to break up. So it's just awesome. I love it.
Everything starts to get really, really crazy, and Cassian cannot get comms to work with Will. And I have a quote for you. "Communication disruption can only mean one thing: invasion."
Invasion. Yep.
I mean, not really, but that's what
basically
broken comms means, that there's some sort of
Listen, they're quoting themselves a lot here. Keep in mind, Ryland's also said it's a trap, quoting Akbar. So there you go, right?
Yes, it's a trap.
It's a trap. It's just
in gore. Yeah. There's the reporting has just escalated.
Yep.
Highly volatile insurrection behind me.
Yep. Yeah. And Cyril's so uncomfortable.
Yeah. And you start to actually see at this point Molotov cocktails being distributed amongst the crowd. And so this is the notice where Lizzie is like, "Okay, we got to start singing." And so they start to sing the anthem.
Oh wait, did we talk yet? First, Cyril got closed into a room with all the KX droids.
Oh yeah, sorry. He was taken and sat.
Yes, and I just love it. I like the idea that he's in this room with all these droids. So not only is it obviously continuing to indicate to him how serious things are and what's likely about to happen, but this one droid just kind of stares at him.
That's K2SO.
And there's no official confirmation, but that's K2SO. We know it is. So anyway, yeah. So that was fun. But yeah, so the stormtroopers then arrive. They sort of pin everyone in. They've closed in the plaza, and people are screaming. And to your point, the Molotovs are being passed around. And Lazine is like, "Okay, violence is going to break out any second. I'll start singing the song." So I start singing the song, and other people join in, and soon everyone is singing.
And it's really cool. It talks about what they are, and that, Highlands or Valley to Highlands, we are the Gore. And then it also mentions like two other places, like I forget the locations, but it's a really nice song. And actually, like, I know some nerds out there that are gonna learn it.
Yeah.
It's good.
Absolutely. Yeah.
It would be interesting to hear about like how it was produced.
Yeah, I'd love a lot more detail about this song.
Yeah.
Because it's one thing to write a language for a show. It's another thing to get more than one character to speak this language. Like the earlier scene where they're all arguing in the cellar is wild because they're all speaking this language and it's bonkers. And so that's really cool. But then here now you have a huge crowd singing this song.
And my guess is that they probably hired a choir to sing it.
Probably, yeah.
And then gave them like liberty to sound more rough.
Yeah.
You know, because like I know when I've spoken with people who are part of the choirs that have done Star Wars performances in the past, they have to learn weird words all the time, like Korra Ratuma. Like, and it's just like learning the phonetic pronunciation and learning it, and that's how they do it. Because oftentimes a lot of people don't speak Italian, but they have to sing Italian, right? So it's just like that.
Marie Claire also has an episode all about chanting in Star Wars. Go listen to it.
It's about choral in Star Wars.
Choral in Star Wars, my bad.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's about the use of choral in Star Wars. And it's got
excellent.
some amazing people, like Frank Lehman, who has written the motific language of Star Wars in John Williams. It's really cool.
Great stuff.
So Cyril escapes the KX room.
Yep.
And confronts Deirdre. What have you done? How long have you known about this?
Yeah.
She like scoots her attendee out of the room so that they can have a domestic
dispute.
There's an armada out there, and he's not taking anything from her. He's not taking any excuses, and he chokes her.
Yeah.
This shocked me.
It shocked me too, but at the same time, I want to tell everyone, part of what we find so shocking about this, it is the intimacy of it, the brutality of it. It's manual strangulation, but it is what Anakin did to Padme.
Yep.
Now he used the Force, but it is the same thing. And I want to be clear about that because there is a history of this in Star Wars. This is indicated often.
Vader chokes people with the Force with his own hand by lifting people. He chokes people with the Force.
Right.
Vader is Anakin, but it is a thing.
It's a thing. It's so I want to be clear that like yes, it is very realistic domestic violence, and it is also something that appears a lot in Star Wars, and it is usually, not always, but is usually used as an indicator of how far gone a character is. The idea is supposed to be like only a true Darksider does this. And so in Cyril's case, it's so interesting because what's for him, it's not that he's going darker or something like that. It's more just he's coming to a full realization of what he's done. This is entirely him projecting his guilt onto Dedra.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. So, and he's also like done with, you tell me it's a rumor and I will throw you out the window.
Yeah. Like he's so violent here, and part of what makes it shocking is that we haven't seen him be like that at any other time. He's always such a meek, mild-mannered guy. The one time he tried to do something violent was when he went to like go arrest Cassian on Ferrix, and he got his butt handed to him.
Yeah,
he just like was such a loser, and he couldn't do anything. And
he's been working out with the rebels, maybe.
Yeah, but like he's not a physical guy. That's not his thing typically, but he is just so horrified, and he's so disillusioned, and he's just rocked by this realization of what he's been a part of and what he's done and the lies and the betrayal, that he's kind of snapped. And so he does this horrible thing, and once he gets the truth out of her, he lets her go. And then you didn't seem to mind the promotions.
Yeah, I do want to call out that she says, we're going home as heroes. We're going to be together. You didn't seem to mind the promotions. This is a proposal scene, TM.
Oh, yeah, it is.
This is a proposal. Right. This is, This
is join me.
We'll rule the galaxy as father and son. Or this is Kylo, hear nothing but not to me.
Yeah. No,
this is a proposal.
Right.
This is a Dooku to Obi-Wan. And it's because the darkness craves companionship. Deirdre is in the dark. She realizes all the dark things she has done, but you can't have love and coexist with domination. And she gets her answer really, really quick, which is good luck, Dedra.
Yep. And he leaves.
And he rejected it, which good on him. I know he has not been a good person because he has been part of the machine.
Right.
But he tried in the end to reject when the truth was in front of him, but it was too late.
Yeah. Well, we're getting to it, but it's so interesting that the question is always, in this case, what would have happened if he hadn't seen Cassian?
Because he might have tried to help the wounded.
Right. I think there's a possibility that he would have done something in care or defense of the Gore. Because
they might have both ended up in the rebellion hideout together.
Who knows?
Who knows?
Yeah. We don't know. But the point, it was seeing him, it drives him to madness. Because again, he cannot cope. He can't cope.
There's too much cognitive dissonance.
Right.
In his mind between the rebellion person who has led to murders of his colleagues, who is now this outside agitator that he is involved with, that Axis guy who I'm sure Dedra has been telling him all of these things this whole time, and what is happening and what he has allowed to happen and provoked to happen.
Yeah. So what ends up happening is, again, in the same way that he took out his guilt on Dedra, when he sees Cassian, he similarly projects all of how he feels about himself onto Cassian, and hence attacking Cassian is really what he wants to do to himself. So we'll get to that, but I want to get into, this is where we see, so Syril he goes out, he jumps back into the crowd. We see those young, youthful green troops advance into the crowd. And Dedra's looking for Syril because she knows he's in danger. And the Gorman flag, this is where we see that with that labyrinth on it. Again, we said you're trapped in a maze, symbolizing maybe the spider's web. And people start throwing things at the riot police, Dedra gives the order to proceed.
And the sniper doesn't shoot at any of the protesters. Nope. They kill their own green baby soldier. So this is, again, killing the children, eating the children, sacrificing the children, which means consumption. It means you have no future if you're willing to kill children as a means to your ends.
You can't build anything on that.
That's the symbolic meaning. You can't build on anything because you're killing your own children. And then the soldiers, in a reaction to that, like they're trying to rescue the soldier, but then they kill a protester hanging from like a tower from the memorial. And everything goes crazy. Molotov cocktails get thrown, fire explodes everywhere, and then you start to see the commander who's brought in, who does crisis management, with the fire reflecting on the glass in front of his face. So he is the consumption. He is the thing that is causing the destruction of Gorman.
Yeah. And you start to see the Gorman front taking losses. We see people that we have known going down. And so then you see Dedra goes to the balcony to look for Syril. The droids join the battle.
It's absolute slaughter.
They throw people. They throw barricades. They're completely impervious to blasts. One of them kills Enza by throwing her all the way across the plaza. And Cyril's just in shock, and everything. So they switch to slow-mo. Everything slows down,
and the sound is dampened.
You get it all from Cyril's perspective, and he's just frozen in horror. Just can't cope at all. The hotel manager now throws a bomb. And this is the moment now that Syril sees Andor and completely loses his mind, and he actually tackles him just as he was about to snipe Dedra. Now, what's interesting is that Syril did not know he was about to snipe Dedra. So it was not chivalry. He was not trying to save her. He was just blinded by his hatred of Cassian.
My one note on this is I didn't think Syril had it in him.
But I kind of loved it.
Yeah.
he just loses it. He just
feral.
loses it.
But it kind of shows like even if you're not that type of person, like you could become
everybody has their limit.
Everyone has their limit. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
so he loses it. Mm-hmm.
To me, this shows symbolically, because like when we have like these sorts of like very impassioned fights kind of in the middle of a big arc, because it's like literally like the middle of the episode in the middle of this arc. Syril is Cassian's shadow. Cassian created Syril, and he's been following him for years.
And this happens in a space surrounded by those yin-yang windows.
Yes.
So, yeah, shadow, light. There you go.
But Cassian doesn't understand what it means.
No, he's so confused. Like he's
like, why are you beating me up?
Yeah, he's fighting for his life, but he's also like, why is this guy so determined to kill me? He doesn't know what's happening.
Aims his gun. He picks up the gun that Cassian held. I'm going to kill you with your own gun. And he's like, who are you? And so Syril takes a moment to be like,
he's just,
I'm going to explain to you how you've ruined my life.
Yeah, exactly.
Very Javert. Like, I know that they compared him to Javert in Les Miserables, but very Javert. Good job. It was too late when he realizes that he has been blindly following the wrong, organization, and then he is killed.
Yep. Yeah, Rylance kills him with a shot to the head. So that's Rylance's moment of violence. So again, back to this idea of everybody has kind of the moment where they'll turn to violence. And he did.
Yeah.
He did.
And Will comes in and they're back together and they're trying to leave. Everyone's trying to leave now because everything is just destroyed and the KX droids continue to attack. And they get out of the main area into a side street and people are running in all directions. And then they start backing up into the side street and running away from something. And we see it's a KX droid who's on the attack. And I wrote down, they are saved by dumbass boy who killed Cinta.
So I found out his name.
I found out his name too. It's Sam with two M's.
Just like Tim with two M's.
I'm like, Sam with two M's. That is a name for you. Yes. But anyways, I guess, okay, fine. He redeemed
kind
himself.
of atoned for what he did to Cinta by saving Cassian. Will, sort of.
But the KX droid is
K2SO.
But he is pulled apart.
Yes, Arachmos.
Yes. Any thoughts on if that meant anything, or it was just cool?
He had to die to be reborn. So
no, absolutely.
But it was cool that he was pulled apart, and it also works later when Cassian has the line about, "I think we got all the pieces," because we've talked before about what collecting pieces means. Yes. So we can come back to that. But it was very cool. And then there's this conversation where Cassian's like, we gotta go. And Will says about Drina, I can't leave her behind. And I want to call this out briefly because this might be one of those things that the only reason I caught it is because I'm a Rebel Captain shipper. And this is a big thing among the Rebel Captain people, which is, again, for those who don't know, this is the Jyn Cassian ship. But there's a thing that people notice that 3 times in Rogue One, Cassian goes back for Jyn when he does not have to. He did not have to go back for her, and he took on additional risk to himself to go back for her. And so there's this idea of like Cassian always goes back for Jyn. And the thing is that Cassian here is like, we got to go, we got to get out of here. And Will says, I can't leave her behind. And he earlier they had a conversation about this as well, but I got to go find her. And Cassian's like, no, we got to get out of here. So Cassian does not really understand at this point the idea of I'm going to put myself at risk to go back. Yeah. But Will does.
So he's learning this. Yeah.
Right. He continues to see the pieces that he's collecting here.
Exactly.
So I liked that. And then tell people what happened here, Cass. He asks for another favor, loads Kay onto the tank, and as he drives away, hears Drina's broadcast.
We are being slaughtered. Man.
The Empire built this fire and led us to the slaughter.
The Empire built this fire. They made this fire and led us to the slaughter. Consumption.
Always.
Yep. Always. num 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 eating of the people of Gore so that they can get their way. Dedra has a cry in the safe room.
Yeah, she has a panic attack.
Yeah.
She completely loses it. And I thought this was so interesting because I just didn't know if they were going to really truly show her grappling with guilt.
Yeah.
This is a character who is evil and she still feels guilt. And I do not actually think she is on a redemptive path.
I think it's going to cause her to double down, but in a more personal way.
Agreed.
And we end after this with Edie, and she's with friends, and she's watching sort of this happen on Gore, and of course she's worried. But this didn't work for me. And the reason is, I get it. Every mother, no matter how horrible, probably will mourn the death of her child if their child dies before them. We know that he is dead. She does not know yet. She's just worried. But she is horrible. And we don't empathize with her at all.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then we end with the choir singing the Gore anthem in a beautiful, angelic, but mournful way.
Yeah. It's very haunting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I don't know that ending on Edie was the right choice.
No, it's a weird choice. It's a weird choice because it's like
they could have used it earlier, maybe that shot. It was an odd choice, I think.
It was a weird choice because the whole point is the takeaway should be that the Empire did something truly heinous and there's no justification for it.
If they could have afforded to have more people watching their TVs. Their TVs. It's the HoloNet.
It's the HoloNet.
HoloNet. Where's my Holo?
I know. I want Holos. I know.
If they had afforded to have 10 different people watching this happen to show how many people saw what was happening, heard the Fox News lines about it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Maybe putting her in there as just one of the people that has seen it happen. I don't know.
It doesn't, but this brings me back to one of the other things that we run into a lot this season is not knowing what's just a random one-off and what's actually going to pay off. And as we go into the next episode, that's where I think this becomes really critical because there are things that should have paid off that don't. And so I don't, again, to your point, maybe there's a reason that that's there and it's going to show up later. Maybe she and Dedra team up to get revenge. Who knows?
I mean, if that happened, that would be enough for me.
Yeah, but then I would be like, okay, they laid the groundwork for this. But without that, it just feels like a weird bookend.
There are so many people on the internet that think that Luthen is Uncle Harlow.
No, I don't think so. I mean, maybe, but I don't think so.
I mean, if that's the case, then Edie confronting Uncle Harlow and being involved with that, cool. I just don't.
It doesn't make sense to me in a lot of ways, though.
I know.
Yeah,
it's fine.
Yeah, weird. Okay,
I think people want to connect things together, right? Which
is fair.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess we'll see.
This is where the Valley and Highland, you can hear it in the Gorman anthem over the Andor symbol. And it's raining
at the beginning of the next episode.
It's raining on Coruscant because the planet can't cry. That is a trope.
Yep.
Can't cry. Yep. It's raining. The Senate, of course, the Gorman senator is being arrested. So we're starting episode 9. Welcome to the rebellion. And this is where we see that again, foreshadowing towards Bail. The Gorman senator says, "It's my people today. It's your people tomorrow." Flash to Bail. Your people together. It's echoes. It's like watching echoes into the future.
Yep. Yeah. And he also says, no warrant, no charges, which once again, I want to mention being in the US, very deeply uncomfortable because we do have political prisoners that are not even being charged with anything. So that's a thing that is happening in the real world. But anyway, but so it's but the fact that we focus on Bail before Mon shows up, that's quite deliberate, of course.
Yeah.
And yeah, so Mon is horrified. She's determined to speak out and then flee, and she just expects that Bale's gonna come with her. And he says he can't. He says he has to stay and buy time for the rebellion to grow and get organized, basically. I mean, I'm paraphrasing, but that's basically what he's saying. He's saying they're not ready yet, not ready to fight this war, so I have to stay. And she says, well, you'd be a prisoner. And so I liked this. I thought it really helped understand why Mon would go be on the ground in person with the rebellion and why Bale stayed in the Senate up to the bitter end. It was really helpful to me, I think, to see this perspective. And then, of course, seeing him in the Senate later, you understand what a gifted politician he is and why he would actually be able to use like procedural methods to gum up the Senate until about the listening device. And then we jump over to Clea briefing Cassian for Mon's extraction. He's looking at this like antique weapon, and I'm not sure what that was about, but who knows?
Yeah, I really liked this scene with Clea and with Cassian. I love it. I always love it when her hair is down.
Yes.
And we have this like, you know, sort of like confrontation of what he's all about. Like he keeps on saying like, I'm done. I'm not coming back. I'm done after this. And she immediately questions it. Like, are you? What does that even mean? Done with us, done with all of it. You just survived the Gorman massacre. I thought there'd be no stopping you. And he says, this is, I think the first time he says it, I need to make my own decisions.
Yeah.
And
she says, I thought that's what we were fighting for.
Yeah. And then she says, clean yourself up, which is essentially Clea saying, get your shit together, man.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. But it's, this is again, I hope we see a lot of these things pay off. I think whatever happens with Luthen in the next arc, I want to see the impact on Clea.
Yeah.
And yeah, because she's been all in from the beginning. So she expects the same thing of everyone else. We saw the way she was to Lonnie last arc. She was like, nope, you're in, man.
You're in.
You're in. Yeah. So that's her saying, no, you're here. You're committed. And we expect this of you.
We have Mon working on her speech in her office and Erskine scanning for bugs. He finds one. And they kill it. It causes the ISB to go, what? And she's like, I gotta go and practice a speech. And he's like, not here, out in the plaza. Just go for a walk. And she runs into Luthen. And I was struck by how he's in his black spy gear and she's all in white in her senator outfit.
Me too.
It was stunning in the contrast.
Yes.
We had talked about how black and white were used as contrasting binaries in this, and it kind of shows like she's the public face, he is the shadow.
Yep.
He is the shadow leader of this rebellion, and she is this public face of opposition, and it's about to come all out. He just drops it. Erskine's been working for me. Yeah. And she immediately feels this betrayal. This is where it's so interesting, and it has my like brain churning because like this is not something that he would normally come out and say.
Right.
And later he says it was a mistake maybe to say it. But I actually
he tells Clea he thinks it might have been a mistake.
But I actually wonder if it was a mistake, and I'll get to that later.
Oh, okay.
Bail Organa's team is corrupted. He doesn't say Bale is on the wrong side. He just says the team is corrupted. The ones that are taking you with them after your speech to Yavin after your speech. And she's like, why are you saying this? How can I trust you? I know what I owe you. You don't care about me. Yeah.
Yeah. And she brings up Tay and says, you saw him as a threat and you move really quickly to remove that threat. And so why won't you do the same with me? I'm a risk. I'm afraid of you. Is what she tells him. So he tells her that he's sending someone he trusts who will say, I have friends everywhere. And he repeats it to make sure she's got it. And, she marches off. And that's kind of it. I do want to mention briefly, it may or may not be deliberate, but I just thought it's very cool that the establishing shot of her inside this, structure, it looks like wings.
Oh,
which I thought was very cool. I thought that was really neat. So loved that. The idea of her finally taking flight. Good for her. And of course, over in ISB, they are suspicious of Mon. They expect her. They suspect her. And she returns to her office to confront Erskine.
Yeah.
And I think this is the place where I want to mention that I did not know Erskine was a Rebels character. I went back and watched the Rebels episode
where she flees?
Yep.
Oh.
And he's there. And I felt silly for not realizing that. But he didn't stand out in my mind, from that. So I watched it and he's there. And to my surprise, it actually aligns really, really well with this. There are some subtle differences. And most of those are things I'm okay with because I can still tell that they used that episode as a blueprint for this to make sure that there was a reasonable degree of continuity. Yeah. And I appreciate that. So I do recommend certainly watching Rebels as a whole because it's a great show, start to finish, but also just this episode about Mon. It is Genevieve O'Reilly doing the voice. So
oh, wow. Okay.
Watch it for real. Go check it out. So it's fun times. It's in season 3, I think.
Nice.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Cassian, Clea, and Luthen meet up, and Luthen looks so tired.
He does. He looks exhausted. Sick king all the way.
Sick king, which of course is an indication that the kingdom is sick too. So the rebellion is sick, and they need to have new blood, and the new hero needs to take over being king.
Yeah.
And he says, "No Yavin for me."
Yep.
And in fact, Cassian wants to save him. He wants him to go to Yavin.
He's trying to convince him to run.
Yeah, to run and to protect himself. And like this is so interesting because he talks about how like you knew this was where we were going to end up. We were going to end up at the end of the gallows, basically.
Yeah, he says he expects to be caught and executed, basically. But he fully anticipates that.
And Cassian, when confronted with this, says, I make my own decisions. And Luthen questions him. And he's like, is that what you've been doing? Sometimes I wonder that you appear just when I need you. You appeared when I needed you. There are signs, basically, to say that this is important. Like, this is him saying, like, you will know him by his coming. So again, back to that, like, Messiah, prophet, Moses. Like, there are signs that the chosen one will appear from like a prophecy perspective. Aldhani, Narkina 5, Ferric, Sanar, Mina Rao, Gorman, like all of these big moments, he's a key player. And so I want to point out that this is an indication that you will become something bigger than yourself. And so if Cassian is the spirit of Rogue One, it becomes the spirit that continues on as part of the Rogue Squadron, right? And this is something we know. Luke took the name of Rogue Squadron from Rogue One. They've made it all make sense. If he is the spirit, then he lives past his whole life, and he is now. He will at some point become the master of two worlds, which is you can live beyond just the thing that you have done in your mortal life. And your fate no longer is just your personal fate. It is the fate of the galaxy.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so this is like, it's coming for you. You're blessed with importance.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Cool.
I've accidentally become too important at work.
Love it.
So I mean that's the thing that is being said here, but it is tying back to that messenger episode with the Force healer. He is saying like you appear when you need to. Something sort of, I don't know, I kind of called it deja vu in my notes earlier, but it's like people like getting the feeling that they're in something really important and they live in an important time and they're doing important work. That happens when you are in significant moments of change. And so it's just really interesting that it's being called out in that way.
Yeah. Yeah, it's very cool. It's fascinating. The references to fate are just so interesting here. But then they practically speaking, they go back to talking about how they knew something is wrong with Bale's team, and that if Mon is arrested, they're all going down. We jump ahead to, we start to see people entering the Senate for the day, and Bale's team of 3, they meet up, they discuss their plan. Then Mon and Bale meet, similarly discuss the plan. And she asks, because now she's nervous because of what Luthen told her. So she asks if he trusts his team. He says yes, but when she asks if he knows them, he's like, no, I don't know them personally. And so she's nervous because, of course, Luthen had said, I'm sending someone that I trust. So he is sending someone personally, whereas Bale is sending people that he doesn't actually know. So she's definitely not sure about this.
And they're also supposed to meet at Gate 9.
Right, which is also highly questionable. And they wrap up this conversation with next year in Yavin, which I thought was so interesting because it actually sounds a lot like next year in Jerusalem, which is typically set at the end of a Passover Seder.
Interesting.
And I'm not sure about that. Like, maybe it's accidental, but contextually, it really does mean something very, very different. Other than the rebellion has been, especially in Rogue One, and then also in Andor, and now I guess in this episode with the title, Welcome to the Rebellion. The rebellion is framed as home for people. Welcome home.
And so it has an even bigger meaning when the Death Star is being sent to destroy Yavin 4.
Right. It's their home.
It's their home. Yeah.
Right. So
they're
I think
building
that's
a home.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think that's what is being said here with that kind of reference, because it's a very interesting choice of phrasing. And then he wraps up with the incredibly eloquent, tear the shit out of this place.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And then we cut into like the speeches being made by other senators. And they're sort of calling out that senior senators can do more. Like they have more political power within the Senate because they can do certain things that younger senators can't do. And it sort of reminds me how often people in political power don't give up their office because they have like all of this clout and all these favors and all of these things, and they can get stuff done in ways that other people can't get stuff done. But we first start out with the Imperials are heroes speech.
Yeah, they're towing the party line. These are all the approved speeches which are going to tell the narrative that the Empire wants.
Exactly. And then the person who lost one person instead of like all of the thousands and thousands of Gorman that died. I lost a person from my planet due to this insurrection. What are we going to do about all these insurrections?
Yep, I know.
Really silly. But we have the ISB who's been trying to figure out like the ISB security hub room. And they've been trying to figure out what's going on with Mon, and they've been trying to lock stuff down. And we have, and it's called out specifically in the text. So this is where my theory comes from.
Okay.
One, the bad agent who is within Bale's team is Supervisor Young's agent.
Yeah.
So how did Luthen know that there was a bad person on Bale's team? He put them there.
Yeah. That's so funny.
So
do you think he's undermining Bale?
I think he was undermining the team. He never said that Bale was bad. He said that the team was bad. And he said it in a way so that Mon would trust him and would trust Cassian. And that Cassian would be the hero, and thus Luthen would be the hero, and then they would be trustworthy again together.
Interesting. I did notice Jung. I didn't put that together, though, so I like your theory.
So that's Lonnie's agent. What's Lonnie's agent doing there?
I don't know. Interesting question.
I mean, I don't doubt that Lonnie is savvy enough to have done something like that, but he would never purposefully put Mon in
at
danger.
Risk. Right, exactly.
Unless it was to serve something Luthen.
Right, unless it was at Luthen's direction because it's all part of a larger plan. Interesting. Okay. All right, the pieces are coming together. I see what you're saying. Interesting. He's so
Theory
manipulative.
time.
Oh my gosh, he really is. Oh my gosh. All right, so Erskine meets Cassian. They use the little password so they recognize each other because obviously they've never met before. And so then the ISB agent tries to call in and gets caught. And so she kills her teammate. And now Bail takes the floor. Mon, of course, is waiting in the doorway beyond the threshold. Remember, she's taking this big step of are you in or are you out, right? When she passes through the doorway and gives her speech, she is crossing that threshold. There will be no going back. So it's important to show her in this doorway like that. And this is also where, like I said, Bail shows he's a really good politician because he uses procedural sneakiness in order to get Mon to speak, which I really loved.
Article 17253. Senior senators can yield the floor to another senior senator without interruption.
Yep.
And everyone is a rules follower in the Senate.
That's right. And she gets up, starts to speak.
Yeah. The speech is beautiful.
It is. It's so good. And while she's doing this, and we'll get into the content of the speech in a second, but the whole time ISB is trying to shut down the feed. But it's so funny because they also have people on the inside who made sure that the door is locked and that you can't get the key because we took it up to the security office yesterday and all this other stuff. And I just love it. And the sneaky little look at each other because it was all part of the plan.
All part of the plan. Yeah, no, I love that. I was like, great. Oh, they're working. Okay, yeah.
I was like, oh, okay. All right, cool. Yeah, it was great. Really, really, really loves it. So yeah, she gets into her speech and says things like, the distance between what is said and what is known to be true has become an abyss.
I think sometimes we forget, you and I, because we talk about, the rise of fascism globally regularly, and we are very conscientious and aware of what is going on in our world around us and don't necessarily listen to specific news sites and certainly do not take all of our news from social media. It's sometimes hard for people who are just living their life to see what is truthfully going on if you just are trying to live your life. Yeah,
we've all got, things we do day to day, things we deal with. And it's just like, you don't always have time to be super plugged in. And it takes effort to discern truth from lies. So it's true. A lot of people don't know. But what Mon is talking about, she says, the loss of an objective reality is the most dangerous. The death of truth is the ultimate victory of evil. And so what she's getting at here is, independently of how informed anyone is, if we can't even agree on facts, then there's no foundation for a society.
Yeah, because you have to have something that people agree on, which is what is the basic rules of the society? What are something that we all agree on?
And what is true or a lie?
Yeah. And inalienable truths.
Yes, absolutely.
That's what the U.S. is built on. And if you can't even agree on what those are anymore, then you've lost anything. When the truth leaves us, when we let it slip away, when it is ripped from our hands, we become vulnerable to the appetite of whatever monster screams the loudest.
Yep.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's
so good.
So poignant to today, to 70 years from before this.
Yeah.
And the problem is that history does repeat itself.
Mhm.
And this is a truth, what she is saying, because humans fall into this trap very easily.
Yeah. Yeah. But this is where then she calls it out by name. And so she says, what happened yesterday on Gorman was unprovoked genocide. And of course, the chamber erupts in horror. How could she say that? And so she repeats it to make sure they heard her. Yes, genocide. And the monster, and she specifically says the monster that we helped create, so she makes everyone there responsible for this, is Emperor Palpatine. So she says, she names him. So she names what happened, and she names who's responsible. And this is just the one act that fascism cannot abide, is this truth-telling and this naming of evil.
Yeah. And it's like the idea, like the darkness can't actually stand the light being shone on it. And like symbolically, Emperor Palpatine is always like in the shadows and in the dark. And he symbolically always is this, you know, he is this monster. We know that. And she is doing her best to let anyone question what they have heard.
Right.
Because you have to start speaking and sharing and calling things out. Staying silent is agreements.
Yeah. So it's a moral imperative, but as we will see later, it's not just a moral imperative. It's also strategically necessary to gain allies, because you need people who will face the truth if they're going to fight with you. And so that's where we're headed with this. So anyway, speech ends, she's out, and Cassian is there waiting for her when she comes out. He, tries to explain to her who he is and then says, I have friends everywhere. And so, she suddenly perks up because she realizes,
this is Luthen's guy.
Yeah, this is Luthen's guy.
And it's so interesting because this is the first time that they've been on screen together.
I know. Well, they were obviously Rogue One, but otherwise, yes.
But I mean, like in Andor, in chronological order.
Yes, absolutely. So this is the first time they meet, and she's still skeptical. So he's trying to convince her. So he's saying, "Oh, I know your cousin Vel," and and he has this thing where he goes, "I see her on Yavin sometimes," and I did see somebody comment in response to that. Would have been nice to see. And again, I have to agree.
Yeah.
Would have been nice to see Vel and Cassian interacting. Super annoying that we didn't get that. Whatever, moving on. And, but she's still not sure, even though he's mentioning Vel and Yavin and Luthen and everything. But then all of her doubts are addressed by the fact that when they meet up with Bale's people, it takes about 2 seconds for the traitor to pull a blaster on them.
Yes.
Say that she's ISB and that she's arresting Mon.
Yep.
And so Erskine, thinking on his feet, goes, she's a rebel spy. Cassian shoots her. She's dead.
Yep.
And, and they're on their way out. And Mon is just freaking out.
He puts his jacket on her, which is the symbol of her joining him in his world. Yavin, the rebellion, says, welcome to the rebellion. This is a transformational moment. She is through the threshold. She is leaving. She's now in his clothes.
But also remember what we said. The rebellion itself is a character.
Yes.
She's all in white, and the avatar of the rebellion just put his coat on her. She just married the rebellion. She is the bride of the rebellion.
She is the bride of the rebellion, symbolically.
Yeah, exactly. Yes. So she is.
Yep.
So
and he is like a shepherd. So he is guiding her into this. And to me, this paralleled the opening scene of season 2, when he was guiding that young rebel who had never rebelled before, had been comfortable in her life, and was making this decision because he is just really, really good at bringing people into the rebellion and like guiding them along. And that's exactly what often these messiah figures or sort of hero types of this particular archetype do is that they are messengers, prophets. They are people who are guiding others. So like Moses, and they have to struggle a little bit before they actually accept their role and guide others out of the darkness.
Yep.
But this one, he's the guy who goes first.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah. So they're on their way out, and she's saying, I'm not sure I can do this. And he says, welcome to the rebellion.
And also, the first lady he helped said, I'm not sure I can do this.
Oh, yeah, you're right. Yeah, so it is. You're right. I like that echo. That's cool. That's very cool. Their way is blocked. So Mon has to actually lead them to the other exit where she goes to meet her driver. Luthen and Clea are freaking out thinking they're going to get caught. And then Cloris, the driver, he approaches and Mon tells Cassian, oh no, he's an ISB plant. And he goes, what's his name? And she's like, huh? I mean, it's Cloris. And he goes, hey, Cloris, we caught her. And then
we found her. Yeah.
We found her. Yeah. And then shoots him. And she is utterly horrified. And remember, she knows who he is. She knows what he's there to do. We saw him grab, but
she's
the audience
never
saw him
seen Luthen do any of these things.
No, she's always been,
Yeah, she's always been like kept safe. It's like, now you're in the rebellion. Sorry.
Yeah, like you're going to see people die in front of you. Like, exactly.
Yeah.
So like the stakes suddenly become very clear to her. It suddenly becomes very real. She's not just bankrolling this thing. She's in it. And he
gets to drive the car.
I know, it's so good.
Like the speeder. It's so good.
Yeah, we cut over to Yavin. Where did you understand the weapon? Because I was super confused by that.
So
really
I think this is what I think. So it's Melchi's weapon. I think it belonged to Cassian.
But that was never like there was. Like, okay, listen,
it's a weird scene.
Planting and payoff, that was never planted in such a way that I would recognize it. So when she sits there looking at it, I'm like going through my mental Andor Rolodex trying to figure out what it is. There's
like a symbol in the bottom. I don't know. Maybe it was Cinta's and Cassian had stolen it from the ship when he ended up back on the one planet, and it was in his box, and he gave it to Melchi. I don't remember. It was not. No, it was this was a bad scene.
Yeah, it's not a good scene. It was weird. Like, again, it just brought me back to how
I'm like, okay, Vel met Melchi. Thanks.
Right. Like, she's completely wasted in this arc. Like, yeah, we've established that Melchi is back, but is that more important than other scenes that we didn't get, which we'll talk about in a minute? Anyway, yeah, no, not a good scene. But back to the safe house. Erskine and Clea meet them there.
I like that they were back at the safe house. That
I like
made
that
me
too.
happy. And the safe house, I don't know, I felt like was lit differently because I knew in my mind that the safe house is all white. Like, it's all white on the inside, but it looked darker when Bix was there.
Yeah, definitely. Well, it was reflective of her mental state. But it was also lit more warmly, whereas it was quite cold here in terms of how it was lit. So it's very different because nobody was living there. It wasn't a home at the time compared to before. So, but then there's is he back there? And of course, we're led to understood that Cassian is referring to Luthen. And so we go back and there's this weird shot of like someone's lying in the bed and they're wounded and you hear them breathing heavily and you're like, huh? Like, did Luthen get hurt or something? Like, what's going on? And then it reveals that it's actually Will and
Drina. Yeah.
Drina. And like, cool, I'm glad Will is okay, but it also felt very out of nowhere.
Yeah.
Like, what?
And it's just an excuse to make sure that we can check canon and allow Mon to be returned by Gold Squadron rather than by
which is what a lot
Cassian,
of this scene is about,
which is weird. Fine, whatever.
I mean, yeah. So there's a little bit of a conversation. There's a ship waiting. They want her to make a speech. They want her coming in with a Yavin escort. And then here's the big one. They want to rewrite the story. So this is sort of their nod to some of the minor continuity changes that they have made. This is them saying like, hey, there are some minor rewrites here.
Yes.
Like, and And it's not, again, if you watch the Rebels episode, it does align well enough for me. I'm okay with it. I'm like, sure, this works. I buy this. It's not like a complete, wait, how does Leia remember her mother? It's not that one. So it's definitely a little easier to swallow. But it's still like, it's a lot of screen time again on something that's just connecting the dots, which I just don't care that much about. Mon says, I'm not sure how to thank you to Cassian. He says, make it worth it. So
yeah. Mm-hmm. And it definitely seems like you need like these symbolic leaders, because I don't see how much that she's like ordering people to go spy or whatever, but she's like the heart of like what they're trying to maintain, which is democracy. And that's what she represents.
Right, exactly. Well, when everyone's going to get caught up in the day-to-day, Mon's going to like remember what the Republic is that they're fighting for.
Yeah, and actually,
or what
like,
it used to be.
We know she is the person who is key in reestablishing the Senate, in reestablishing the New Republic, and her and Leia like fought to like get it restarted, even though there are so many Imperials still accepted into the society too, right? Like they had to make something out of it, out of the darkness. Cool stuff.
Yeah. So, you know what, though? Because this is the last time we see Mon in this episode, this is where I'm going to mention. So I felt throughout this episode, and it frustrated me so much, the glaring absence of Perrin.
Yeah. I was really worried. I was like, what is going on with Perrin?
There was no reference to him. She didn't even mention. I would have at least expected him to come up in her conversations with Bail. If like, nothing else, Bail or Luthen, I would think she'd like, say something.
Like, my family will be safe, something.
Yeah, or something like that. That's it. That's all she's got to say. She's like, are gonna be like are Perrin and Lita gonna be safe or something like, or like, don't worry, I'll look out for them, or I've got it. Don't anything like that would have been great. And there was none of that. And it was also just generally weird that given again how much time they've spent on showing them to us this season, like we spent the entire first 3 episodes with them, and then she and Perrin are like, buddies in crime when they're like going around to all the different Senate parties and everything. And so, and they seem to be getting closer, and Perrin seems so different from last season. And so it really felt like they were setting up for at least when she had to leave, that again, there would be some kind of emotional payoff of like, actually, rather than this being easy for her to leave, it was actually really hard for her to leave because she had to leave her family behind. And that, I think, could have been so poignant and beautiful. And we literally didn't get it. I did see someone earlier today, and to be honest, I don't know the source for this, so I would need to check it. But I did see someone earlier today on Blue Sky mentioning that they had read in like an interview or something that these scenes were cut, that there were scenes with her and Perrin and Lita, and that they were cut. And I have to say, you feel it. You feel the absence of those scenes. It's frustrating.
Yeah, I agree. And so like it feels like there's a gap in her motivation or in her sacrifice or something. There's a gap there. But we have Cassian, who's been given orders to bring Will to a doctor, return to Yavin with Will, and Draven decides to not punish Cassian or not hold him back or do anything. He's making an exception. He's like, I didn't log this. It's all fine. As long as you keep on showing up, my friend, we need you. And he's like, oh, there's a KX droid in the back. Cool. Yeah. Now on to question mark scenes.
So many feelings.
Bix has this time with Cassian where they talk about things, and he's like, I have this dream, we're just gonna leave. And she's like, drink your tea. She drugs him. She puts him to sleep. She does
drug him. Yeah, she does. And she even tells him she's doing it, and somehow he doesn't realize.
Yeah, she's like, you need to sleep.
Yeah, she's giving him
go tonight. Go to sleep.
Yeah.
And he's like, is that what I need? No, I don't think I need to leave. I need out of this thing. And he's running away, of course, from his responsibilities. He knows what everybody is expecting of you. I mean, again, with Messiah figures, with prophets, with important figures like this, the chosen ones, they have these moments of like, I can't do this. I refuse this responsibility. The Garden of Gethsemane.
Right.
I can't do this. I'm not going to. And she makes the decision for him and then leaves him a note.
Yeah, well, slow down. I want a couple things. So, it's very obvious he knows that something's wrong because he tries to get it out of her. Like, why aren't you saying anything? And she goes, I'm listening. So she's specifically withholding her real feelings and not telling him. He says the thing about, like, the only special thing about me is luck. And that's very interesting because he's basically suggesting that eventually his luck is going to run out. And he still doesn't accept sort of his role and the fact that he is actually special and he is important and he does have a destiny. But yeah, then when he wakes up, the morning sun like a bright light, which again recalls the bright light on Scarif at the end of his life. Anytime there's that sort of sunrise for Cassian, it's always sort of calling forward to the end of his life when there's the bright light of Scarif. And then Cassian, he stands there before he listens to Bix's message. He's standing there framed again by that circular door. And it's that he's at that moment of like in or out, right? In or out. And then Bix's recording starts. And I just have a lot of feelings.
Yeah. And she's like, I'm making this decision for both of us. Yeah. And like we must win this. I'm choosing the rebellion. And after all this is over, I'll find you. Okay, fine. So she's this like, now she represents this untouchable thing in his mind that can't age, can't change, can't grow with him. And I am frustrated.
I'm so frustrated. So, okay, I want to say the one and only positive thing I have to say about this. So we said,
we did. We called it.
We thought, oh, she's going to get fridged and we're going to hate that, right?
Yes.
And that did not happen. And I'm really glad that didn't happen. But then we also said, she's going to have to leave him. The only way she can, and it wasn't even about him, it was about her. It was the only way she can have her own journey and grow is to leave Cassian.
I just don't know if we're going to see her for the rest of this season.
No,
so
I don't think we will either. So getting to that,
effectively like a character leaving into exile is like a death.
Yes.
Symbolically.
Yes. Well, she's an object in his life.
Yes.
She is not a character in her own right. She is just an object for him.
Anima.
Yeah. And nothing else. And it really sucks because I want to just remind everyone about Damsel Bix, which is what pretty much all we've gotten for this entire story. So when we meet Bix on Ferrix, she works in the shop, which is surrounded by a high wall. And anytime she needs to contact Luthen, she climbs up into a tower. So she is a maiden in a tower there. Then she's eventually imprisoned in the hotel,
which is another tower.
And she's tortured there. And she has to be rescued from there by the hero who climbs up to save her. Then she is on Mina Rao, and we said also maiden in a tower. She's got a couple of towers there. There's the cab where they live, and there's also the that one where she's working under the silos. So she's got a couple towers, but she's again enclosed, maiden in a tower, and she is attacked, assaulted there. So more trauma. Then she's in the safe house on Coruscant, maiden in a tower. She's trapped there, and she stays there while Cassian goes out and does his thing. Then she briefly leaves the tower to go take revenge on Gorst. Again, not at her own, not on her own agency, but because Luthen let her.
Yep.
Because Luthen let her do that. And she didn't do that by herself. She did that with Cassian. And then she's back here, and she's in this home they have on Yavin, and she's still a maiden in a tower, and the call comes for Cassian, and she doesn't go. And Vel comes and just wants to know about Cassian. It's not about Bix.
Yeah.
And then finally, we get back at the end, and she leaves the tower, but she doesn't even do it for herself.
No.
She does it for Cassian. So Bix has not grown.
Why write this character?
Yes, what was the point of her?
Yeah.
What did she do? How did she grow? How was she interesting? She's just this vessel for trauma and comfort to Cassian, and then leaves when she's no longer what his character needs.
There's a lot of people who love Mon, and they love Clea, and they love Vel too.
Yeah.
I mean, wherever Vel is right now, we just didn't see enough of her, honestly.
Yeah. Yeah.
But nobody's like, Bix.
Woo, Bix.
And there is a reason for that. And it's because she has no agency of her own. And this is what we talk about when we talk about agency.
Right. And I got to be completely honest here. Even though, again, these 3 episodes were very good in many ways, and the show as a whole is very good, this is probably, to me, the biggest drawback, the biggest negative part of this entire show is what they have done to this character.
Yeah.
Because you ask me to invest in her. She is the main character's love interest.
But you can
I didn't even mention she has additional trauma because she had to watch Tim die while she was chained to a wall.
Yeah, well, she was
so
chained
again,
to a
she's
wall.
always restrained. She can never do anything about the things that are happening around her.
There has never been any feminine gaze on this character.
Nope. No.
And that's a very specific term that we use to talk about storytelling with women in mind. And it's hard. We are both women, and we both look for certain things in stories, especially for fleshed out femme characters.
Yeah.
And for the most part, this show has been very, very good with women, their agency, their desires, what they look for, their reactions to things being very raw. Dedra crying, panic attacking in the safe room.
Yeah.
Women in this show are allowed to be ugly, except for the symbolic representation of Cassian's inner feminine and anima, which is very flat.
Yep. Yeah.
And she's not allowed to leave her damselhood.
Yep.
Except maybe she has, and we can hope for the best, and maybe we will fix it in fan fiction.
Maybe. But we're going to have to build that character from the ground up because they gave us nothing to work with. That's my problem.
Nothing.
They gave us nothing. Yeah. So I will just be straight with everyone. I got to tell you, this has made it harder for me to enjoy the show as a whole. I'm so frustrated by how they treated this character. I'm still frustrated about what happened to Cinta last week and the way that she was also an object, by the way. They made her an object for Vel. You know, she had a whole backstory about finally coming to the realization that, you know, she didn't want to be separated from Vel, and that she didn't want to necessarily put the rebellion before their relationship. And we never got to see any of that happen on screen.
Yep.
Plus it didn't pay off in any way, because then she was just there for, like, you know, Vel's grief, which then shuts Vel down for this arc. So I don't know what happened, other than I think femme voices were shut out of this. And I will be also completely honest and say that it's really hard for me to separate my feelings about this from what happened with Acolyte, which was very femme gaze heavy and it was canceled. So it's like that, again, I feel like I'm still getting that message from Star Wars, from Lucasfilm. Hey, this isn't for you.
Yeah.
And that's a crappy feeling.
Yeah, it is. And, you know, we've talked about Star Wars for many years now, Missy.
Yeah.
And
they still don't want us, Brie Claire.
Yeah. It sucks. It sucks when you're told that repeatedly.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Yeah. So whatever, moving on, he comes out and he's freaking out, but then someone goes, Captain Andor, which is the first time they've called him that. And again, weird, like, I know that Vel was like, he's a leader now and they want to promote him. Although hilariously, we haven't seen him leading anyone other than just the general shepherding thing. So I'm not sure where they get that from, but whatever. But like, apparently he's Captain Andor now. So they call him, they say they're going to power up the droid.
Yeah.
So, you know, they offers him protective goggles, and Cassian's like, nope, I take the weapon.
Yep. He's very scared of this guy.
Yep. Offense versus defense. K2SO turns on.
Oh, wait. It's a Cortex swap.
Oh, yes, cortex swap. Yes,
it is
sorry.
rejected or not. It's all about impulse suppression.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
I love it. I like when they talk about droids and reprogramming them and them going through changes on their own, like R2-D2, and developing glitches that become personality. I love droids. Droids are my best. Droids are the best. I love droids. I'm so happy to hear Alan Tudyk's voice.
I know. Well, so he comes on and he sees the weapons pointed at him and goes, "If I've offended you, I apologize." And then there's this pause and he goes, "If not, I'd appreciate you pointing that elsewhere."
Yeah.
So, for all the hype that this so-called meet cute got, it is a real letdown.
Yeah.
I was not impressed.
It's fine.
I'm also pissed because they introduced the character at the end of this arc instead of at the beginning of the next one, which means we are not going to see their relationship develop at all. We're not going to get to see their first mission where they learn to trust each other. We're not going to get to see them sort of building up a rapport and anything. By the time we see them again in a year, they're already going to have an established relationship. We're going to miss out on all the stuff that makes that fun.
Well, and also, if Tony is true to his word and this next arc leads into Rogue One, it is a movie
2 years
set before a movie.
Yes. Yep.
So how much change can we truthfully expect in the lead up to Rogue One when all the change happens in Rogue One?
It's not. I mean, the answer is, I think it was Mike.
Unless they do a flash forward in the last episode, they have a time skip in the last episode that leads into the scene. Like in a couple of months, he's going to go and investigate the thing, and then we see the scene as him walking up to.
Maybe, but that doesn't create a sense of urgency, which is what they're going to need to do. So I don't know. But I feel like this is what our friend Mike said, which is that this is a plot-driven story. It's not a character-driven story. It's a plot-driven story, and that's how I feel. I feel it's about getting all the pieces, all the plot pieces in place so that Rogue One and the movies after it makes sense, rather than telling a story with characters going on a journey of change and transformation.
Which first season of Andor did.
It did, definitely. But season 2, and you can tell me all you want that they had to condense it down from 5 seasons to 1 and blah, 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 blah. You can tell me all that stuff. And I'm still going to say, I don't know that they succeeded. So we'll see. There's 3 episodes left. I'm very interested to see what they do with them and how they wrap up these stories of the characters that we know are not returning. But yeah, I don't know. I sort of finished this going like, wow, those were some really powerful episodes. And also I feel like I'm kind of bracing for a little bit of disappointment here as we go into the finale. So
there's so many beautiful things that are happening in season 2. And so much craftsmanship and construction and beautiful speeches and meaning. And like, I'm still really enjoying the show. Don't want to say that any of the criticism that we've had isn't that we aren't enjoying the show, because we are. It's just, I see a lot of words thrown around that this is the best that Star Wars has ever been. And I beg to differ.
Yeah, I agree.
I think that the construction of where they either had to make sacrifices or change things or choose to condense is visible to me, and I am not ignoring it.
Yep, agreed. Yeah.
That's where we're at. It's still, hey, we managed to talk for a very, very long time about all the really cool things it was doing.
Yes.
And Missy, I very much enjoyed talking with you about this today.
Thanks. I always enjoy talking with you about this stuff. It's fun.
One more week of this marathon.
We can do it.
of Andor as the marathoner.
Yeah.
Of this, yes. Running his way with the baton. To go and deliver the Death Star plans. And then we have the marathon baton handing in Rogue One, right?
Yep. Yeah.
So
what did they bring us? Hope.
Hope. Yep.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Because rebellions are built on hope.
Mm-hmm.
All of the pieces that he has collected along the way. One more week. One more week.
One more week.
One more week of this.
Yep.
And it's been hard, interesting. And I look forward to finishing this off and then looking at Rogue One seriously and saying, was this something that helped?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like Tony said, it's going to make you look at Rogue One differently.
Okay. Cool.
That's what he said. Will
All
it?
right. Well, I don't know. I guess we'll see.
That was the bill of sale.
I mean, I liked Rogue One already, so hopefully it just makes me like it more. I guess we'll see. So,
well, then there's me that's only seen it like maybe 3 times, 4, maybe.
I'm still shocked. It's like I said, it's one of my most rewatched Star Wars at this point. I love it. I watch it all the time.
There are other Star Wars I've watched more.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
I think I've watched Solo more because it is my eldest's favorite Star Wars.
So. Interesting. So Solo, I have definitely only seen once.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. I don't know if you want my opinions on that one, Marie Claire.
Whoa.
It's okay.
Whoa.
It's fine. It's very fine.
Every Star Wars is somebody's favorite Star Wars.
And I get that. And that's the beauty of it, actually. And we've said this before. Star Wars now is big enough for everyone. There is a story for you somewhere in it. And maybe it's this one, and maybe it's a different one, and that's okay.
And that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Missy, where can people find you if they're looking for you online?
You can find me on Tumblr, where I am All Girls Are Princesses.
Thank you very much, everyone, for joining us. And we will be back next week for the finale of Andor Season 2. Cheers. Thank you for listening to What the Force. I'm Marie Claire Gould, your host. Our orchestral music is by Christy Carew for What the Force. You can support the show directly on Patreon at patreon.com/whattheforce. We would like to thank all our patrons, especially those who love and are obsessed with What the Force. Christian R., Adrian, Sarah Joy, Scott, John, In Wild Space, Minky Moo, Derek C., How Rude, Christian Luca, Carly Ann, and Scott C. Support the show by wearing the Force with our merch. Like and subscribe on YouTube, or leave a 5-star review on iTunes or other pod apps. It helps people find the show. You can connect with us on Blue Sky at WT Force, What the Force Podcast on Facebook, or on our website at whattheforce.ca, or our Discord. Links are in the liner notes. Feel free to reach out and start a conversation. Cheers.